Okay, test, 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 test. Okay, almost ready to go. Just doing one more quick volume test here. Okay, I think we're about ready to go. Make sure I got chat window over here. And looks good. Okay, excellent. Hello everybody, hope you've been having a good week so far. And are looking forward to the weekend as I am. Thank you to the folks who stopped by the previous stream on Tuesday night. That was a bit of an impromptu thing, but still it was fun to get in on the Return to Drangleic action. If you're not familiar with Return to Drangleic, and if you're just stopping across this stream, to give a little recap of what I'm up to with this little series here. The community on Reddit and similar places has organized a get-together, a yearly sort of celebration where people will go through and group up and play through Dark Souls 2. It's encouraged to play the Scholar of the First Sin edition and to do summoning for co-op and stuff like that. While I have been working on the Naruto stuff for the other streams and playing through Elden Ring, I've also been listening to some Dark Souls 2 critique and commentary videos, going all the way back to like Matthew Matosis's video from like 10 years ago. And in doing so, I've wanted to understand what the state of Dark Souls 2 criticism is, so to speak, and to understand the concerns that people have had with the game and how that has changed over time. So, as I was listening through and kind of forming my own opinions, I started to try to tally, in my own head, okay, what do I actually remember about the game? Do I think these criticisms are valid? And realize that I kind of had to play through the game myself to be able to comment on it in a fair way. So, this series of streams here is me participating in the community event, as well as trying to see if my perception and opinion on a game that I absolutely loved and still do has changed much over the past, it's been about 10 or 11 years, and to try to see to what extent I might agree or disagree with the critiques that have been levied in the community. Specifically, I'm looking for things like issues with the controls, issues with level design and pacing, issues with player instruction and telegraphing things, fairness, ganks, things like that. Trying to keep in mind mechanics that people found a little bit controversial, like the hollowing mechanic and the adaptability stat. How bad are they really? Do they really, is the hatred against them justified, in other words? And in addition to that, for folks who don't know, I've only started talking about this stuff recently. So I am a game developer. I've been making games for over 10 years. And I really, really love playing games and talking about games. And so my perspective, although I don't claim to be an expert and I can't know what was going on inside the heads of the developers who played this game, who made this game, excuse me, one of the things that I find the most unfortunate is when critiques around the game tend to focus on, like, well, the developers are lazy, or the developers hate players, or something like that. As a game dev myself, I think, reasonably assure you that no game dev really genuinely hates their players, and nobody who is investing a like this amount of time and care and craft into their art wants it to suck or fail. Now, it may still suck, it may have failed, but in order to evaluate that, in my opinion, I think we need to distance ourselves from the rhetoric of trying to put ourselves inside the heads of other creators and just people who have made stuff, and assume that we know what that experience was like. So I'm going to try to provide some of my commentary on, like, what it's like to be a game developer, what goes into making games, how some of the mistakes, if you want to call them that, that this game has I say might because, again, I'm not a mind reader, but based on my experience and having faced similar issues in the past, what may have led to some of the quote-unquote mistakes being made, or the decisions being made, or whatnot. And then also, I'm going to spend plenty of time gushing about how they succeeded in solving some really, really difficult problems, that I am very sort of impressed with them for doing so. In addition to just kind of commenting on the game's lore and what I understand about the game's story and themes and stuff like that, evaluating whether or not the one second evaluating whether or not the game's themes are reinforced and supported by gameplay. The sorts of things, just for context, the sorts of things that I tend to find most impressive in art of any kind are ones in which the direction for the, wow, this is fucking beautiful, by the way. The direction of the game is consistent in as many aspects of the game as possible. So, sound design, texture work, lighting, music, character animations, user interface design. In a perfect world, every single part of a game will be part of a unified whole, and they will reinforce one another. The architecture, the ambient soundscapes, the way that your character turns, like every little detail, should ideally be specifically curated and designed to be part of that whole. So, like here, for example, it's a very, very simple example, but the decision to make every pickup item in the game have this sort of wispy, ethereal, soul-like effect was a deliberate decision. Why did they make that particular decision? Is it just for reasons of economy, like they didn't have the time to model a pickup object for every single class of item in the game? That may be true. That would have been a lot of work, so it's much more economical to do this. But also, the idea that you're kind of running through this kingdom and pilfering souls as you go, taking things off of corpses, it makes sense, I think, to tie the visual of loot to something that's a little bit more ethereal, a little bit more magical. So, again, very simple solution, not exactly unique to this game in particular, but a deliberate decision as well. So, interesting here, to me anyway. So we have a corpse that is mangled and kind of cut up and leaning against the wall, and we get a lance from that particular corpse, and then in this chest, however, we get the amber herb. So let's take a look at the amber herb in particular and see what the description is. I think it's these, right? So, an annual herb with an amber color so deep it gives the impression of luminescence, restores a small number of spell uses. It is the mistaken belief of many that the flowers of this herb do not blossom. However, small white flowers do blossom during dusk when the moon is visible. So interesting. From the placement of this item, it's kind of curious, right? That the Grand Lance, which is a weapon that, let's take a look at that really quick. Is it this here? Oh, wait, no, it's Winged Spear. Grand Lance. A lance fashioned from rare Bastille Designed for high-ranking Drangleic knights, hence the decorative design. Bastille equipment is of the finest make, but Bastille is so rare that very few of these weapons were actually used in combat. So this almost like legendary status weapon over here, that is associated with this knight that is clearly ornate and very exquisitely crafted with all these sort of twisting patterns, is just discarded and left on this dirty, broken corpse in a corner, whereas what appears to be a little piece of a plant or something is actually stored in the storage container. Something that looks a whole lot like a treasure chest, like the archetypal treasure chest from video games, albeit like a somewhat shoddy wooden version of it. So the fact that one of these items is discarded and seems to be almost like a piece of battlefield garbage, whereas the other is tucked away in a bespoke container, tells a little bit of a story, right? There's something precious about this. There's something deliberate about its inclusion in that container. So I love this door. I love the design behind it and how both regal and ominous it looks at the same time. I never would have figured this out myself, but if you look behind the knight, you can see that there are these pillars with these sort of inverted V shapes kind of coming off the bottom. I heard somebody theorizing that those are meant to represent the trees in Ash Lake, possibly the spires as well, in Things Betwixt. And then the branches in the background also could represent like the bed of chaos, and so there's a whole great deal of storytelling that's happening in the intricate patterns behind there. Not something that you even really need to fully understand, I think, in order to just get the impression that there are images and symbols kind of hidden and scattered throughout that should be on some level evocative of the previous games, the previous lore. And it kind of feels like, if you're going to a country that you've never been to before, you don't know the history of, and you're walking through some historical sites without the context, you can kind of glean maybe some parts of it, but you're getting fragments, you're getting bits and pieces, and that's something that I think Dark Souls 2 does very, very well. Now, this particular knight, interestingly enough, is not hostile unless you get close to him. You don't even have to attack him. And he was not present in the original game. So I love the fact actually that his armor is like consistent in terms of color palette and tone with what we see behind. He's got that very evocative image of the sun on his shield, heavily armored and clearly a knight of status. It just based on the level of detail in his armor, a stark contrast to all of the other sort of shoddy, disheveled warriors that we've come across so far. And the spear that we picked up, or the lance rather, also again seems to kind of fit that same color scheme as well. The aesthetic design and everything appears to be entirely consistent with what we're seeing on this knight here. So interesting. So how can I phrase this? It's, I think, compelling to ask whether or not this is a good thing, because this was not present in the first game, and as a result, or in the vanilla version, this is Scholar of the First Sin, so this was not present in the vanilla version of the game. That doorway was particularly interesting and ominous and cool looking, and kind of more subtly placed. Now we have this knight that's in front of the door that is very clearly telegraphing to us, okay, this is kind of a big deal. Not only is this, because you might have been able to mistake this for like a bas-relief or a what's the word for it? So some kind of like decorative piece. But now this is making it very clear that this is a big deal and you're going to have to come here later. So I think this is probably a more ambassadorial choice for players who are new to the series, especially new to this game, but maybe moving a little further away from the kind of obtuse intrigue that the original Dark Souls game was kind of known for. That being said, this knight is obviously very tough and armored, but has relatively slow moving attacks. Very, very slow attacks actually. And so is a decent opportunity for you to learn, to do some limit testing with, shield enemies with shield mechanics. That little spin was a little goofy though. But yeah, you can kind of test things out a little bit and get a chance at like tasting combat with one of the game's more advanced enemies, but in a, I guess, watered down capacity, in a very, very limited and much more safe capacity. I don't remember if their movements wind up getting much more intricate later on, or if their animations are sped up or whatever. I feel like they might be. But either way, it's a nice way of kind of introducing these enemies early and then setting you up for, I guess, like a rematch with them later on. Yeah. So you can kind of see down there, I think that's what they were saying was the bed of chaos. It seems to be maybe enveloped with chains, like surrounded with chains, which is pretty cool. And then we have what seem to be waves maybe that are rising up, where some people have said that those might be meant to be the silhouettes of the Sisters of Izalith, Witches of Izalith. So I'm not sure if there's anything definitive here, but it's something that you can definitely, I think, get a sense of the history of this world, of this space, and just for how long it's endured, and the archetypes and the, you know, legends are kind of still living through the artwork, like diegetically within the game world. So this is an interesting combination of items, getting the torch and the Ring of Restoration. Let's read this. A protective ring passed down in House Osteria gradually reduces HP. I'm not 100% sure about the pronunciation, so if you've heard elsewhere differently, you might be right. In the sacred land of Lindelt, this ring symbolized prosperity and longevity for the great House Osteria, but the ring is fragile and breaks easily as if it hates being taken for granted. So interesting. This is the fragile and breaks easily thing may be a reference to the Ring of Favor and Protection from Dark Souls 1, which would break if you took it off, and said something about how the goddess Fina's love was fickle. We have a reference to the sun, which should be evocative to players of Dark Souls 1 to, you know, Gwyn and his line, but now this is referring to House Osteria and Lindelt, and so it's, you know, kind of implying that the whatchamacallit, the sacred things have kind of propagated away maybe from Lordran and have been like picked up or inherited by other nations. I do kind of wonder about the inclusion of this item so early on, because I know when you break down the math of it, the actual amount of healing that you're getting, like mathematically per second or whatever, is very, very low. So people tend to scoff at it, especially for PvP. But at the same time, if you're going on a long play session, like you're exploring through the level, right, and your exploration might be taking you 10 or 15 minutes, that adds up, and it can basically amount to an extra Estus Flask charge, which I think is, you know, very very useful, obviously. So, and it can also, even if it's not a full Estus Flask charge, it can still help you kind of stave off the need for using a couple of soul gems, or life gems rather. I do really like the mechanic with the torches. Obviously there are torches in subsequent games, and in Elden Ring there are places where it definitely feels necessary to use torches. However, the act of like going and getting fire and then bringing it to essentially a checkpoint for the fire in the form of a torch, and then having that checkpoint to come back to, like if I needed to take out my shield here, for example, I could reasonably do so, and then just, you know, relight my torch here. So the interplay of light and dark is really, really cool. Unfortunately, that it's kind of tempered somewhat by the fact that this area, I mean, the lighting looks really, really good. Right? Like the light and shadow in here, the propagation, like how far the light travels, the places of darkness that are still kind of created. It feels like a very well realized system in principle, but I guess I could counter that or potentially critique that by saying, like, yes, all of that is true. However, um, we're in this really small area, and by the time we start to actually appreciate it, it's basically gone. And so this is a decent, intro tutorial to it. It's just a straight hallway with a couple of like minor deviations. But where is this going to go? It's like a decent first foray into the concept, but where are we going to go with it? And I'm not sure, apart from the gutter, that it's necessarily like super well explored overall. It's also as a teaching tool, as a safe space to kind of play with the element of fire, it's totally fine. But the spacing of the torches doesn't really make me feel like I have a lot of pressure. I'm never going more than a few feet away from any of these torches, and so I think you could probably look at this and say they should have made this, or they could have. They had the opportunity to make this into a slightly larger area that had larger pockets of darkness with longer intervals between the torches. And if they had done that, it would kind of force the player into these moments of like, okay, I'm committing to this torch now. I kind of need it. I'm relying on it, and I'm not sure how long I'm going to need it for, like how far I'm going into the darkness. So I think that would create a little bit more tension and make the torch feel more valuable. And this is okay, hang on. Let me see, I can do this. Can I? Okay, so I see the idea that they were going for here, which is, the solution, so to speak, to this combat encounter is not necessarily to just get up in the face of all these knights and fight them all in a standard fight, although I can. That's obviously not a very wise idea. It's to try to bait them into hitting these barrels, which I think is actually a really cool idea. The problem is that it's extremely finicky. And now I'm kind of stuck here. Don't have a whole lot of chance to get away. Okay. Well, that was pretty cool, actually. So I feel like the game's clunkiness is kind of working against it as usual. But, we had the opportunity previously to learn about these turtle knights and how they are vulnerable to attacks like this. And we see the barrels placed around, and they are, visually distinct. You can still tell which ones are explosive and which ones aren't. They're not like made super obvious like the traditional, glowing red or like bright red barrels. It's a bit more subtle, a bit more mature than that, if you want to call it that. Thinking about what items we're getting here, nothing really too much to say. Let's take a look at the whip, though. Not normally used on the battlefield. Interesting. So makes you wonder if that whip was maybe used to whip soldiers into shape. Let me try that again. Whip soldiers into shape, so like punish them to, improve morale, so to speak. This area is. Hang on, let's take a look at the key item that we got. Inventory. I will say that this UI is not as friendly as something like Elden Ring's. So, a soldier key. Key to the soldier's door in the Forest of Fallen Giants. A fort was erected in the forest to face the giants, but now the soldiers are lost and hollowed. They are enfeebled but not without honor, and continue to steadfastly defend their country. So that's interesting. Interesting to find a whip here, which is something, which specifically says is used on unarmored targets, so not really intended to be used by soldiers. And then we get this flavor about the soldiers here who keep on fighting are fighting specifically for the purpose of, or they have this attribute about them where they've retained their honor, apparently, and they're still admirable in some sense. And yet there's a whip lying amongst them. So is that consistent with the narrative? Are we getting consistent narratives from the different item descriptions, or could there be an unreliable narrator in the midst? So, I've seen footage of people who are, I guess, like less of a fan of how much, of the gank squad of the Turtle Knights from above. But knowing that we can take them out with fire bombs, like with fiery explosions, is useful, of course. And when you kind of break it down, I got hit there, but the Turtle Knights themselves are actually very, very slow and very deliberate, and their combos, when they do use them, are pretty short and highly predictable as well. So I could definitely see somebody being like, I don't like the pace of combat. I don't enjoy like how much waiting there is or how sticky it feels or whatever. But I also feel like, use some repair powder. I also feel like it's pretty fair. That guy there was, in ambush. It's true. Some people might find that a little cheap, but what a long and steady wind-up animation. That felt pretty fair, right? Didn't feel too exploitative or anything. I think there's a bonfire here. I'm just trying to find it. And by the way, like, we're only a couple hours into the game. We've already got like a ton of usable items, including the aesthetic, which I should use probably to go get some more souls from the giant or whatnot. Oh, is this where Dennis shows up? Yes. Okay, so where is bonfire? So this particular encounter, I think, is pretty potentially unfair. I don't really know how players should be like reasonably expected to deal with this at this point. He's got so much health, he's so armored, and his abilities are like so strong that I don't really know what the correct solution here is, but I'm gonna try. Yeah, see, like, it's just not really reasonable, I don't think, for me to get up in his face as a melee fighter, unless he only uses his spells from afar. That did jack shit. Okay, so can I roll through it? I can sort of roll through it, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, I'm not doing nothing. Well, that did nothing. But I also feel like I don't have much chance against him. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, so, well, he has a much faster weapon than I do. Estus drink time definitely isn't helping me. Shield break, nice. Okay. So yeah, I'm feeling like pretty underprepared for this encounter, and not entirely sure what to do. So I'm gonna try to go back, and I'm gonna see if I can get some help. Because if you remember, back at the start of this hallway, there was a little glowing summon sign, and that was from an NPC. I can just survive long enough. We good? Okay, I have actually have a comment on that. Are you gonna do anything, buddy? Or are you gonna? Maybe. Okay, so now I think I stand a chance. There we go. Okay. Oh shit. Stand a chance, but that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. Okay, there we go. So, a couple of things come to mind after that encounter. Actually, got a human effigy. Is that it? Anything else? One is that I feel like this whole sequence is here to tell us about can I actually break these? I thought there was one over there that got broken. Anyway, this whole kind of sequence seems to me like it's here to telegraph to us the superiority of spells, or at least the versatility and utility of magic use in this game. So despite, and this is something I feel very conflicted about actually, despite the fact that they went through the trouble of tutorializing the act of lighting bonfires and making that like a thing of importance, they also give us a summon that creates a light above his head, and the light from that particular magic not only is more effective than the torch and doesn't require like take up an inventory slot, but also changes the color of the environment accordingly, and sort of like overrides the torch color and the torch like light radius. So it just kind of seems to be the case that they're telegraphing, okay, does he have like scissors on his belt? What are those? Forceps or something? Um, that he has some sort of other advantage inherently if you're a spellcaster. Looking at his character model, it's a very interesting concoction of different things. His staff has like a bat on the end of it. He seems to have some sort of like almost like a variety of tools, maybe some tools that you would use at a forge. It's kind of hard to see, but his head is like this big glowing eye. You can actually get that headpiece later on. So Atlas as a character is a really interesting kind of like kit bash, I guess, of different different items that seems to be telling a really interesting story. Dennis as well, he's called an armorer, but he has a a pretty ample range of spells that he's using. The thing that I guess I'm because I have the shade, that I'm most kind of conflicted about is Dennis uses so many different types of tactics and abilities that I don't think it's really fair for new players to be expected to know how to deal with them. I almost wish that they had included him in a weaker version in the tutorial, because we see him doing guard breaks, we see him using long distance and close range spells. He's very versatile. What he can do, we see him using a mixture of melee weapons and range weapons, and so he almost feels like he should be a boss, and one that the player has, I guess, more time to kind of interact with, to learn all those mechanics and have their mechanics tested. So maybe you could just argue that he is the soft boss of this area. He's like a mini boss of this area, and he's kind of designed to give you your first one-on-one encounter with a similarly sized adversary, because you're fighting the Pursuer, you're fighting the Last Giant, you're fighting the Ruined Sentinels. It's going to be a while before you fight anybody who's essentially just another hollow like you that has a varied moveset. I guess I'm that has a moveset that's I guess more in line with what a player could do. I guess I'm forgetting the very obvious thing, that the experience of getting invaded by a red phantom that is stronger than you is something that's going to happen to a lot of players, especially if you're engaging in any sort of multiplayer by this point. So maybe it was just a way of kind of giving you a hint of invasions with a player-like opponent in a difficult scenario, but one that you could potentially return to later, with some decent loot at the end, but nothing you absolutely need to continue progressing or anything like that. So yeah, when I think about it, I guess the only thing that I no, because then, like, if you get invaded, right, I got invaded by the adversary, and then I was like, oh, I can't handle this, and so I went and got help. So it's also teaching you, hey, you can get help from people and they can do multiple things for you, right? They can light up the environment, they can engage in combat. Here are the multiple ways in which grouping up will actually be to your advantage. So, I don't know, I think it's a net positive. It's one of those things, I keep having this experience talking about this game where I go in feeling like it's totally unfair or whatever, but then wind up feeling like, no, actually, when you think about it and break it down, it all kind of makes sense. So I think let's buy a couple more of these. Oh yes, buy the lockstone too. Okay. So with the lockstone, actually, I think, how many of them do I have? I think I might have two. Yeah, I have two. So this is something, again, like, I keep winding up coming around on things, so maybe I'll come around on this too. But so far, I don't really love what I'm about to do now. There is an item that's available to you very early that is something that is obviously very useful later in the game. Should be a very rare resource, but you can actually get them to drop pretty consistently from enemies, and it kind of, I wouldn't say ruins, but it does kind of reduce the specialness of it a little bit. But let's see. And of course I'm talking about the Titanite slab. Now these faces in the wall are so like creepy, eerie, mysterious, haunting. They perfectly suit the Dark Souls 2 theme. I love them as a key item, and the idea that you're like silencing them by inserting something into their mouths like that is kind of cool and chilling as well. That the way that they kind of summon a face like this and they reveal an illusion is really cool as well. But now we get to this area, and the reward for this one Pharos Lockstone is one Titanite slab, which is the highest form that you can upgrade a weapon to. And then the Chloranthy ring, which again is one of the best rings in the game in my opinion. It's one that I think most players will equip and then basically just kind of leave on indefinitely throughout their entire playthrough. So one Pharos Lockstone gave me the ability to fully upgrade any of my weapons when time is right, and then also one of the best rings in the game. And that is really a lot to be getting in the first area within the first few hours of gameplay, and it also kind of sets an expectation for the Lockstones in the future, which may not really be consistent. So is that a good thing? Is it subverting expectations, or is it kind of like setting us up for being disappointed? H&H, hey H&H, how's it going? How's your week been going? Managed to work through some technical issues here. When I started up the stream a little while ago, there was no audio coming from the game, and I couldn't figure out why, except for the background music. But I managed to get it done in time, so glad you stopped by. Glad you stopped by after I figured out that particular issue. Just playing some Dark Souls 2 tonight. Gonna be doing a little bit of co-op, but also just kind of wandering around looking for stuff to comment on. But yeah, how are you doing? How's everything on your end? Got any fun plans for the weekend coming up? Also, your username being HNH Debates, I've been meaning to ask you if you're aware of any like fun debates that have been happening recently, either like Discord style debates or even like real quote unquote debates. You know what I mean? Like fun debates that you've been consuming in just out in the world in general. You know, like I was watching it's old by now, it's like many years old, but I recently rewatched the Matt Dillahunty versus Jordan Peterson debate from a few years ago, and that was interesting to go back over for sure. H&H has been going good. Glad the weekend is starting because school been kicking my ass. Thank God that you fixed that. Yeah, it's definitely a big relief. I've been wanting to try and do like a restream and try out like Twitch at the same time as YouTube, but once I started noticing the audio issues, I was like, I don't know if I want to like risk it and be messing with both of these things at the same time. But yeah, school. How's everything going in that regard? It seems like things are pretty busy at the moment. Do you have like exams coming up on the horizon? That's always so stressful. Okay, let me see. Yeah, I haven't been in school for a while, but I still get like academic anxiety dreams about like, oh no, I'm an hour late for the final test or whatever. Like those, I guess that's just like never going to end. Hopefully you're not dealing with too much anxiety in that regard. It's never fun. H&H says, nope, fiction com is basically dead. Oh, that's a shame. IRL debates are kind of popping, though. My name is this because I'm mod in a server called H&H Group and I post debates about it. Oh, okay, gotcha, yeah. I know I'm just really bored and tired of a lot of it. Yeah, that's fair. Are you still, I don't know how personal you want to get or whatnot, but I'd be curious if it's like, are you just taking a bunch of courses that you have to for requirements? Are you able to take some electives or whatnot that's in a subject of your interest? Always nice when you can kind of invest in something that's of more personal interest, but that's not always the case. So, oh wait, no, I want to go home first. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. What's the H&H group like? Do you guys debate mostly fiction stuff? So, something I wanted to check real quick. I think I have the Soul of the Giant. I think I'm gonna consume it because I can go get another one with the bonfire aesthetic if I need to. Let's just read the description real quick. Soul of the surviving giant who was bound below the force of the giants. The lord of the giants, who had brought wrack and ruin to the entire kingdom, was said to have been felled by an unknown warrior. His beaten and broken remains were then dragged beneath the stronghold where he was sealed away. Use a special soul of the last giant to acquire numerous souls or to create something of great worth. So yeah, really tragic story with this character, I suppose, but also, you know, you're seeing that the kingdom was getting revenge on him and then definitely not like honoring him in defeat. Interesting, I guess, that they just decided to that they couldn't yeah, so all the other giants here have turned into trees. I wonder why the last giant did not have the opportunity to do so. If something about the way that he was bound and imprisoned like left him unable to kind of pass on, like he was like that was part of his punishment, was his imprisonment. But we can go get another one of his soul with the bonfire aesthetic afterwards. H&A says, nah, just credits, okay. I'm a big history buff, so I look forward to that class at least. Sociology is also fun. Oh yeah, sociology is great. To be honest, H&A is very degenerate. I try not to include myself in the weird stuff that happens there. I thought it would be for you because the people can be mad weird. Yeah, that's fair. As you know, I have a relatively low tolerance for I guess like the spicier aspects of debating. Kind of felt a ruin after the Koner left chord. But it's primarily Lookism discussions, which is like a Korean battle manhwa. Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I think was it Swag who, like, somebody was trying to get Swag to do a Lookism debate on stream a little while ago. I don't know much about it. Would you recommend it? Let me see. Okay, so one thing I did want to try is to
Bearer of the curse.
There's Seek List. So one of the biggest things that comes up when talking about Dark Souls 2 is the adaptability stat, and how people are upset that you essentially need to increase your adaptability in order to stand a chance of getting anything done with regards to dodging and rolling and stuff like that. And the interesting thing to me is that there are multiple ways to increase your agility. It's not adaptability that's really the thing that you need, it's agility, right? Boosts ease of evasion and other actions. So with adaptability, it increases your resistances, it increases your health, and it increases your the amount of poison damage that you inflict on other people, and it also increases your agility. So I think people's objection is really to agility, but there are different pathways to increasing your agility, one of which is just you're going to get more agility, although slower, but you are going to get some more as you just increase your ability to have spell slots as a mage. So mages are going to like automatically get better points in this category. And then if you do increase adaptability, you're not just increasing your agility, you're also getting better resistances across the board. So really, adaptability is and poison bonus as well. Adaptability is a very valuable stat. for a variety of reasons. And yes, the primary incentive is to get the agility bonus, but once you've upped it to, not even all that high, I think it pays dividends. And so I'm not really agreeing at the moment with the same level of criticism, I suppose, that I've heard other people say. But I am going to try and put some points in a few different things. Okay. Catching up on some comments here. It's just really mindless, but there's something about it that's pretty enjoyable. The writing can be a hot dog a lot of the time. Okay, I like that description. I think the problem with adaptability is generally just that the game essentially requires you to level it, because without it, the game is objectively worse. It'd be fine if it worked as an increase of iframes instead of a baseline requirement to even really play the game. Yeah, it affects, I guess, because it affects so many things, like you're rolling, it affects your... I think it affects your shield, right? It affects the quickness at which you raise your shield, unless I'm mistaken. It definitely affects your speed of consuming items. It feels like something that is heavily incentivized, and maybe to a fault, to the point of distracting away from other things you might want to put things in. I wonder if the problem isn't so much with the stat itself as much as it is with just where the baseline level of adaptability is. In other words, if they had given you more iframes to start off with, so that you basically felt like decent as opposed to underpowered to start off with, and then they had made it so that if you get more adaptability, you feel even stronger. You know what I mean? As opposed to making it feel like it's a necessity to just climb out of this horrible basic status. I think that might make sense. So next up, I gotta I think I'll go deal with the pursuer next, but I didn't do very well against him the last time, so we'll see. Start making my way there. Okay. Yeah, so that was another thing that they tried to fix in Scholar of the First Sin, which I think they did a good job on, personally, but I guess not everybody agrees that the pursuer... Well, okay, so the pursuer is sort of jankily implemented in that his aggro radii, or that's not even the right term for it, but just the distance at which he starts to move away from you and disappears is really low, and so it feels like he's supposed to be chasing you all around, but he just very quickly runs away, and it ruins the feeling of being chased. Why am I getting turned around here? Did I go the wrong... Oh, I went the wrong way. I gotta go up the stairs. The ladder. H&H has base DS2 enemy placement is so good. Very sad that Scholar of the First Sin kind of ruined it. Interesting take. Would you be able to elaborate on that a little bit more? I feel like there are some ways in which the placement of enemies probably makes more sense, like the placement of the Haid Knights around the Tower of Flame, but that might not be the case with everything. Okay, alright, gentlemen. Yeah, what other what examples can you think of? Not second guessing you, I'm just genuinely curious, because I can't I don't have a mental list or whatever, and so okay, right. Actually, I've been thinking of doing a Dark Souls 2 vanilla playthrough as well. Maybe do a sorcerer playthrough, just to kind of compare both play styles, and also to evaluate things like that. That's a crazy little hop that guy just did. Okay. I don't know if you heard that, but every once in a while, there's a little... I'll try to point it out if it happens again. There's a little audio cue that happens every once in a while. Um, that is the same sound that the centipede demon things with the human faces back in Demon Souls make when you kill them. For whatever reason, the sound designers really like that sound, and they put it in the ambiences of every game except Elden Ring. I think they stopped at Elden Ring, but I think it's in Sekiro. It's definitely in Bloodborne and the Three Souls games. It's just like this little human like scream vocal sample that goes wah wah wah, something like that, right? You listen for it every once in a while. It'll happen, and it happens in the ambient. It's always like in the ambient backdrop of a few different levels. It's in it's really easy to hear it in the painted world of Ariamis in Dark Souls 1. I guess it's like their their version of the Wilhelm scream, if you're familiar with that. Um, yeah. So I'm guessing this is not going to go very well, but I'm going to try anyway. H&H says, I mean more so from a gameplay perspective, because that's my main criteria when it comes to judging Souls games. Feels like Scholar can really be crowded and random. Okay. Can be really crowded and random, while the base game feels tactical and grounded. Interesting. So, what do you think of the crowd of hollows around the tree in that clearing, right when you come up the ladder from the river in that first area? You know, where the that ogre or whatever it is patrolling now. You come up the ladder, and then there's like 15 or 20 individual hollows there. Would you say that that would be like too much of a horde, like too spammy? Would you prefer there just be that? I think it was just a Haid Knight who was there before, right? Would you prefer something more like that? Okay, it wasn't too bad. It's one thing I do kind of feel like is you don't one sec. Screw that up. That once something starts to go wrong for you in this game, it's like you're kind of screwed for a while. Like if you get hit once, you're going to need to heal, and if you heal, it's going to take you a long time, and you're probably going to get hit another time. And if you roll away and you try to shield, like that's going to take a lot of stamina. You're not going to have a lot of time to respond. So basically, it's very, very, very deliberate, and it almost feels like turn-based at some points. But yeah. That being said, like the pursuer over here has very high damaging attacks that are also like highly depleting of your shield. But they're pretty predictable, and his moveset is not all that varied. So I feel like the lesson here is just to learn to pace yourself, maybe learn to take a couple of risks, like do some limit testing, but you know, also recognize that you will get another opportunity if you just wait, let your stamina recharge, right? So it's more of a lesson in patience than anything. And like, yeah, he has some very glaring weaknesses too. Okay, I just tested that to see if I can get away with 2 attacks there. Okay. I need to be careful about hitting his shield. Okay, so I could have gone in there for an attack, but that probably would have led to me being damaged. So I'm like kind of practicing. I'm not just rolling in and out either. You'll notice that I'm kind of like walking sometimes and rolling other times. It feels like I have to be conscious of how I'm moving and the movement verbs that I'm using specifically, and wait for my opportunity. And now I can kind of like go in, and there we go. Yeah. I thought I was going to lose that for sure, but actually turned out okay. Oh, you do get the Ring of Blades. I thought you only got the Ring of Blades if you killed him in the first place where you find him. So I was mistaken about that. Okay, let me catch up on chat here. I had to focus for a second. H&H says, are you talking about the tower where you climb up and there's supposedly dead hollows? Yeah, where it all looks like they're dead, but then as you come closer to them, they kind of jump up and try to get you. I feel like the Lone Hide Knight being there is better because I just feel like it provides more enemy variance, but I've heard the counter is that it's kind of stupid to have a Haid Knight there. Yeah, so I think it kind of depends, right? On the one hand, you have a knight that is sort of out of, like a fish out of water, I guess. He's not where he's supposed to be. But I will say that, especially in the early gameplay trailers and everything, the image of that knight just I love his silhouette. I love like seeing the weapons sticking out of him. It's very cool, very evocative, and seeing him kind of like just sitting there alone, like mulling away, like it's just fading away. Fading away is the phrase I'm looking for. Was really, really cool. And you have this, there goes that spear. You have an opportunity to engage him in combat. If you do, he's probably going to be way more than you can handle. But if you succeed in defeating him, you also get access to a lightning sword, I think, pretty early on. So that's pretty cool too. Guy's upset. So I don't know. I like the idea of, in Dark Souls 1, you had the Black Knights of Gwyn, which were analogous, I think, to the Haid Knights, and they would crop up in different areas across the game, and it was cool to kind of think of there being like these elite enemies that were kind of out there waiting for you to go engage with them. Caught me. The get up from prone time is a little too much. Yeah, I will say I do feel like I am paying more attention to my positioning than I do in like Elden Ring, even though Elden Ring has like more advanced, I guess, and evolved movement mechanics. Pursuer feels so satisfying. Love his animations. Wish he had more attacks. So yeah, he could. What would be kind of cool is if over time, the more time he spent chasing you, he would gradually get like different attacks, and then there could be like one big confrontation. I don't know if you've played God of War 2018, but in that game there are these enemies called the Valkyries that you'll fight, and they're kind of like that. They're just kind of out in the world waiting for you, and when you fight them, they will have what's the word for it? They'll each have the same kind of core moveset, but each one of them will have a couple of different attacks that make them unique, and then eventually you'll. Well, I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't played the game, but there is a thing that happens later that kind of brings everything together. And so it'd be kind of cool to like have your relationship with the pursuer evolve over time. As a DS3 diehard, seeing that even DS2 has better level design is so saddening. Aw. Actually, again, like, could you elaborate on that? Because I feel like both of the games have good level design. Just sort of depends. Like the Bastille, I think, is very well designed, but the Iron Keep, like in certain areas, the Iron Keep maybe not so much. The undead, the cleansing chapel in Dark Souls 3, I think, is very well designed. The catacombs, not so much. Urethil is brilliant. I think Urethil stands up with any of the best things in Dark Souls 2. It's probably on par with some of the DLC stuff, right? I'm sadly an Xbox user, which is the worst decision I've ever made as a video game fan. So now God of War 2018. Yeah, I kind of made a similar mistake at one point where I purchased an Xbox because I thought there were certain games that I wanted to play, like Halo and Gears of War on the Xbox specifically. And I don't know. I don't feel like the purchase was really worth it. What can you do? Yeah, so obviously if you played Dark Souls 1, you'll recognize that that nest over there is a reference to the bird from Dark Souls 1 that takes you from the Undead Asylum to Lordran. And you can also go back and curl up in that nest, and it'll take you back to the asylum later on. And I bet that's something that most people probably won't find on their own on their first playthrough, because you have to kind of, I guess, spend so much time sitting in that nest that it feels like a bug. It feels like something should have triggered, and you have to sit there for like a full minute or something like that, right? But Dark Souls 1 had a bunch of things like that in it that were obscure and that people probably wouldn't find. Like the way to get to the DLC was just insane, right? Um, but that was part of its charm, and I guess Dark Souls 2 has fewer things like that, except maybe the Chasm of the Abyss, that are just um, like these weird, obscure mysteries in the lore for sure, but in terms of gameplay and items, apart from like the pickaxe with the pigs and stuff like that, and like the Saint Ear spear, there's a couple of things, but it feels like maybe they were a little safe with some of their like the environmental puzzles, I guess. Dark Souls 3 has a lot of aesthetic value to me, but returning to the game can get very boring just because I'm running the same shit over and over and over again. That's fair. It does kind of follow a pretty similar progression on different runs, doesn't it? Let's see here. So I think I want to level up my vitality a little bit because I want to wear some of that new armor I just got, and then probably some endurance as well. I played Dark Souls 1 twice, and the bird nest thing still makes me think the game is bugged. Yeah, because it takes so long, right? Like, how were you reasonably supposed to figure that out? Or I guess you weren't. Maybe that was the point. I wear this armor on every playthrough, so I kind of don't want to, but also, you know, Art Leather Gauntlets. Oh, that's weight is. Wait, hang on a minute. The icons are still pretty obscure. Weight. Oh, this is weight. Okay. And yeah, the physical defense bonus is something I don't hear a lot of people talk about either. I kind of want to eventually, move into a lightning build of some kind. But for now, probably just do that. Ashen Souls notwithstanding. Okay, yeah. That should do for now. Okay. So, I think I'm gonna go to Haid for a little while. Oh, wait, I wanted to go and talk to Moglin. So, this is also an interesting mechanic. I don't know if they ever brought this back. But the idea that, you can talk to this guy or just, like, buy some crap from him, and, if you buy enough, it will eventually
Thanks very much.
progress his quest line, and he will start to offer more and more items, and then eventually, once you progress his quest line completely, he goes hollow, and he starts to go hollow, and he starts to like lose his like sense of self, and also his personality changes as well. It's kind of like the actor whatever or the identity of becoming a merchant kind of overtakes him and overrides his previous personality. Oh yeah, I don't know if you just heard it, but that sound clip of the like centipede monster played again in the background just now. It's definitely a thing, H&H says, that makes Dark Souls 1 special, but it's really just small inconvenience on the second playthrough. I feel like it could have been presented better. Yeah, for sure. Or some kind of hint, like even somebody in the world saying like, I hear black wings lead to old haunts, but patience is required. Clearly the ramblings of some madman, and then you're like, oh, okay, so I just gotta be patient. That like would be enough maybe to give you a hint, but I don't know. That I feel like Dark Souls thematically, the way that the world is designed, is kind of orients itself around the idea that you're exploring this place that you're not really supposed to be in, and you're not really supposed to understand everything, and it's all meant to be slightly outside of your control and of your purview and everything. And I think it's putting some gameplay things like that in there. Like, okay, if you really did want to actually hide an item like the peculiar doll and keep it away from everybody, then a character in the world would have to go to great lengths and maybe think unconventionally and do something like totally out of the ordinary to have that happen. So the player has to do it too. And I think, obviously the Dark Souls games can be played single player. That's not a wrong way to play them. But at the same time, they do a lot of work to nudge you in the direction of trying to do things online. And even if you can't like participate with the messaging system, um, this is tough because I feel like any player, regardless of online or offline, should be able to enjoy all the content the same and have access to the same stuff. And they try to replicate that by putting in like assistant phantoms, like golden phantoms and red phantoms. But at the same time, there's stuff that like I think they wanted the community to kind of wonder and ponder over for a while and collaborate to find secrets. They wanted the shared knowledge to be an active part of the way the game was consumed. And unfortunately, in order to do that, you have to take the risk that some individual players might miss out on that. It's a tough call as a designer, I think. Um, don't go messing with that bird's nest unless you want to be Raven Food, Crestfallen Warrior, circa 2025. Yeah, I could definitely see him, or even like the undead merchant, maybe the one that has the invisible cat or whatever, saying something to that effect like, "Oh, Yuria, I'll go get you a black feather from the asylum," or something like that's too obvious, right? But you know, nudging you in that direction with some incoherent, hollow babble. Yeah. So. Just thinking about these knights over here. um I think it's probably a pretty cool subversion, right, of expectations to you're kind of expecting that these big knights are going to be particularly terrifying and difficult to contend with, and then it turns out that they're actually kind of pushovers and they actually give you quite a lot of souls. So interesting storytelling in that they look a lot like, not in terms of their overall design, but in terms of their like placement in the environment that they're in and their overall function. They look a lot like those big ones from Dark Souls 1. Hello, collaborator. That were around Anorlando, and so those were definitely felt like appropriately scaled mid-game bosses, mid to late game. Sorry, not bosses, but mid to late game enemies, and they were definitely significant threats, challenging enough. But these guys, by comparison, are pretty simple to deal with. So it kind of helps reinforce the idea as well in the background that the Anorlando that you once knew, that's sort of, even if it's not the exact same place, like the visual archetypes and everything that you would associate it with it, have kind of fallen into disrepair. You can kind of see, I forget what her name is, but the cleric lady over there, just barely. That's an interesting mechanic as well. Hello. Interesting mechanic as well. The, 1 second, I'm going to try and help this guy out. There you go. The environmental stuff, I know some of it is a little cheesy, I guess, but the ability to pull the, what are those things called? Yeah, the levers over here, in order to make the boss fight for you easier, and just seeing the tangible effect that it has on the environment. I think that's really cool. Not something that you see in the subsequent games. I think like the boss fights are always pretty static. Obviously there's stuff like the tree, what the hell is it called? Curse-rotted Greatwood in Dark Souls 3 breaks apart the arena. I think you can kill it fast enough that it won't, but I've never managed to pull it off. But I'm talking about like going before you even go into the boss room, just like preparing the arena for yourself, give yourself an advantage. That's not something that you really see anymore. Like Dark Souls 2 did that for a lot of boss fights. There's a lot of arenas in which you have an opportunity to prepare in advance, like lighting the torches for the Lost Sinners boss fight, for example. Go dragon rider. There's another one I was just thinking of too. I'm trying to remember. There's a few, right? So even with a boring boss like this that winds up getting reused later, moves are not all that compelling or interesting or whatever. It's still fun to kind of go through the level and feel like you're preparing for it by curating the arena, so to speak. Not every boss has to be like super hard, although this guy is like doing nothing. Like literally doing nothing. So that was kind of weird. Not necessarily the biggest fan of this boss fight, but the lead up to it, you know, everything that was involved in getting here was kind of fun. Hello. Honestly, it's just nice to kind of return to this place in this game with other people, kind of reliving some of the same stuff from a decade ago, but with, you know, fresh perspectives and everything. Now, I will say, though, that... Does he follow you into the boss fight? Yeah. So, the Haid Knights being as tough as they are, now the whole area being kind of populated with them, feels like, you know, if I wanted to go back... Oh, did I stagger him? Oh, cool. I didn't even know I could do that. Feels like if I want to go explore the area at my leisure now, I can't really do that anymore, right? Because it's just sort of crawling with these guys. But I remember them being harder than that. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. It is also kind of cool visually to see the area has basically woken up as a result of your interference with the Dragon Rider. That's kind of cool. Like seeing the world kind of come to life as a result of something that you're doing makes your actions feel more they have more tangible effect on the world around you. I'm gonna read the description here. Oh yeah, so I forgot to put this on. So already, again, like 4 hours or so in, we have a ring that increases our physical attack, a ring that it restores us, a stamina ring, and something to mitigate the effects of going hollow. It's interesting that I sometimes hear people critiquing the game for being too easy, but then also for being kind of unfair and not giving you enough options. I feel like we've been given quite a lot of options to start off with here. And these Haid Knights as well, I mean, they're tough, but also we can stagger them, which gives us a little bit of breathing room. I had forgotten about that. And they're not as imposing as I remember. I thought I remember them having like really erratic movesets and being like impossible to read, but I don't know. Oh, okay, so that is interesting. He has like a very quick swipe attack, so he punishes you for just hanging out close to him, I guess. Man, the shield recovery time is really too slow, at least for my expectations. No stone, okay. I think it would make sense to try to go to the, to fight the dragon, if only because, I'd like to get the Way of Blue to participate in the co-op that way. But I don't really have enough health, so I think I'm gonna go back to the bonfire. Or I'll go activate the next one. But yeah, on the one hand, I totally agree with the perspective that this area is very linear and not particularly... I mean, it's got like one big T branch junction in the middle, so to speak, and maybe it's not the most intricately designed or whatever. But I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing. Like, this is one of the first areas that you're going to explore, and it is visually very evocative, very beautiful. The image of the Tower of Flame um, in the middle like that, and the skybox itself, everything is just really, really beautifully rendered. Although I seem to recall the lights inside the tower being more animated. I don't know if I'm imagining that, but something about the visuals do seem a little different than my memory. But the lighting is beautiful, the ocean is beautiful, and everything looks just close enough um, to Lordran and to Enorlando to be familiar but a bit off, which creates this uncanny valley kind of feeling, and it's of course directly tied into the lore and the story of the game. So as a level overall, I think it's exceptional. Also seeing the Bastille in there, like right as you come out of the boss fight, and seeing the contrast between like that horrible, decrepit, like scary looking place in the distance versus, I mean, like this city is drowning, but it still retains a lot of its kind of beautiful architecture and everything. I think that's a cool contrast. It's nice to see that um, as soon as you come out of the boss fight, and then you see the cathedral there. The cathedral itself is still intact with the sleeping dragon. I think the sleeping dragon was a good inclusion, but definitely changes the vibe a bit from, I guess you could say it kind of recontextualizes the guardian dragon later on and makes that boss fight feel a little less special. But it does have a more diverse moveset, and it kind of jumps around the arena in a bit of a different way, so it's not a one-to-one comparison. Let me check out that armor real quick. Right. That looks awesome. Chainmail worn by Haid Knights. Whether Haid refers to a kingdom or was just a name for the land is not clear, for no records date back far enough to tell. All that is known is that the Way of Blue has its origins in Haid, and that Haid was later subsumed by the sea. So I think the Way of Blue is something that winds up getting talked about in a variety from a variety of different characters. I think that guy who sells us the armor, what's his name, Moglin, talks about it as well. And knowing that Enorlando as well was a place that used to be associated with the Covenant that would go out and dispense justice by, seeking out sinners and punishing them, it's interesting to see the way that the legends and I guess systems of governance and concepts of honor and whatnot have been subsumed by subsequent generations and kingdoms. It's like the more thing. Wait a minute. That's weird. Why is there a little pitch increase on that? Like going erp? Yeah, weird. It's kind of like they inherited, what came. Like the more things change, the more things stay the same. The new kingdom has arisen, but it's also retained like some of the emotional baggage, so to speak, of the previous one.
Are you from these parts? My name is Lycia.
Oh, Lycia, that's her name.
I have come to spread the art of miracles, a practice of which I am a disciple. I can see that you are well suited to comprehend their wondrous power. But the cost of it, that's for the heart to decide. I'd heard awful rumors about this place, and I'm afraid they were all true. The king, gone. The earth, ravaged. The burden on the people weighs heavy. I fear that, by now, they may have scarce room in their hearts for miracles.
So I guess miracles, she's kind of suggesting that miracles tend to work best on people who are already kind of doing well off. Maybe she's implying that if these people's lives are in such a terrible state, then they aren't able to maintain the faith that would be required to invoke a miracle.
Why did I come here? Well, do I need any other reason than to spread the gospel of miracles? My preceptor always said this art should be shared with the world. And such is my only wish. Sometimes I fight the urge to pack up and go back home. It is... well, I must do this. And being out here all alone only makes this a more fitting test of my fortitude. I expected this cathedral to be bustling, but there's hardly a soul to be found here. Without any goings-on, I'll have to move soon. To a place I could gull the... sorry, help the gullible by teaching the good word.
So it's, I think, pretty interesting to consider that she has,
No need.
okay, 1 second. That she has specifically sought out this place knowing that it was like a ravaged kingdom that fell apart. But then she gets here and then she's expecting the cathedral itself to be bustling. What exactly was she expecting? That there would be a bunch of, I don't know, wounded or soldiers just hold up here defending the place? This kingdom or this place, this tower or whatever, is also adjacent to Drangleic. So was she expecting that Haid would not have been affected by whatever happened in Drangleic? Not sure, but she seems to think that she kind of needs people to be in a decent spot to begin with to be able to help them out. I kind of find the inclusion of that line to gull the ... right, to be a little much. Like it's kind of on the nose to have her reveal her intentions like that, but maybe it's kind of played off, I think, at least in part, as a bit of a pun. And so I'm guessing that maybe in the original Japanese that it was more subtle, or it could be read as something that's a bit more, bit less on the nose. It does feel weird to be that transparent about it, you know what I mean? Wait, behind him? Okay, I got punished for trying to backstab fish there. So I'm thinking of trying to go to the dragon, but I might need more health for that to be able to survive that long. I guess this is something that I've heard people be concerned about, so to speak, is the idea that they just want to be able to run towards the bosses and not have to worry about the environment. And it's been really interesting to hear people say that about, like, Elden Ring, that one of the things Elden Ring did really well is that they eliminated boss runbacks. And I sort of agree, because even with Sekiro, like, Sekiro boss runbacks are not usually all that long, but I still wind up being like, why do I need a loading screen? It's an additional 10 to 20 seconds where I am being kept, so to speak, from doing the things that I want to do, which is just to get back into the fight. Is our technology really such that we have to go through and reset the whole scenario? Why can't we just reset the environment directly in front of the player instead of having to go through and reload the entire level? Now, there's reasons for that, right? Because you don't know what the player might have done elsewhere in the boss battle before getting up to it. So you would have to basically have your system set up to just reset the variables relevant to the boss fight and that encounter. Which, again, I don't think would be all that difficult to do, but I don't know what other, like, knock-on effects that might have. But anyway, I'm definitely a player who wants to not waste time, and just wants to get back into the fight and just try again immediately. But so much of Dark Souls 1 involved really taking your time and, I guess, embarking on that journey to the next boss fight through whatever environmental hazards were in your way, to the point where you were never really just having, you know, boss fights, or like the real boss fight was the friends we made along the way. The real boss fight was never just the enemy in the room at the end. It was always that plus the experience of getting to them. Right? You were being tested on your ability to endure all of that, not just on your ability to like kick one dude really hard. And that feels to me like such an intrinsic part of the Souls experience that I guess I just don't know. I fear that we'd lose something by overemphasizing the speedy return to the boss fight. It's good in some situations, but also you kind of want that, like the feeling that you get when you finally make it down through Blight Town, right? And you're like, okay, I made it through that fucking hellscape, and now I've reached somewhere where I can clearly there will be some reprieve, right? Clearly there will be something here that can help me as a reward for me surviving that. But then you just realize that you're stuck all the way down there at the bottom of this miserable fucking swamp. You could potentially try to go back up, but that seems like much worse of a prospect given what you just endured. Not even sure you can get up. And so your best bet, your only way out is to deal with Quelaag, or maybe to go down the Great Hollow, but that's pretty well hidden. So the act of running back to the boss and choosing to engage with Quelaag again is your like opportunity to is basically like part of your fight against the environment itself, more so than against just, again, like a dude in a room. If that makes sense. And then by the time you beat Quelaag, it also feels like you beat the what's he doing? Oh shit, I forgot about that. Okay, come on, do it. Oh, bad. Okay, see. Oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. I thought it was good. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I guess it just winds up feeling like your relationship with the environment is extended into your conflict with that boss. And to me, that's pretty special, for a better word. Now, that being said, I am in no way interested in going back and redoing that run-up and running past all the knights. To be honest. If I go in here and I died at Ornstein, which you are going to on the first time, for sure, nothing about the experience of redoing what I just did feels particularly fun to me. I wish that there was some part of my brain thought that there was a bonfire here. I don't know why. I just thought that there was, and there's not, and I'm pissed because I don't I don't want to do all that again. So but I don't know, like, is that my post Elden Ring brain, like my spoiled Zoomer brain now basically being like, I just don't have patience for anything? Or is it that this is genuinely like tedious and doesn't feel like it's all a part of the shared experience or whatever? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. But let's see what I can get done here. Wow, that took out all my stamina, huh? Okay, I gotta focus because I don't remember his movesets very well. Okay. So far, not terrible. As I get my ass kicked. Yeah, that was bad. It's just making me appreciate that feature I think Dark Souls 3 introduced, where you can like hold down the down button and it'll like automatically scroll all the way to your to whatever item you have in the lowest slot. Well, that didn't work at all. I tried to let myself get some damage taken because I thought it would help me have more stamina. Didn't really help much. So I don't know if it's just me imagining things, but it felt like I was able to use the pillar to block against him. So that was pretty good. To like break his line of sight. Well, to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed because not that I really wanted to do the run back and die to him, but I remember him having more attacks that involved like using dark magic or something like that, and I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to see that. It was cool that we were able to stagger him, so that felt like a nice inclusion. And seeing the pillars break as well. I believe they did that in Dark Souls 1 as well, right? But yeah, I wonder how many people come through here and have that experience like I just did and wind up not even seeing the second phase of the fight. Maybe this is just because, you know, I have a weapon that's particularly strong, particularly well leveled up for this part of the series, and I kind of cheated myself. I don't know. Or this far into the game is what I was trying to say. I'm not sure. But that was kind of disappointing. Not gonna lie. What do the cracked blue eye orbs do? Oh, they let you invade. Like, search for invaders to fight. Two different shields in one chest. That's interesting. Good look. One was a cleric's parma, right? A parma used by clerics on pilgrimage, enchanted with somewhat fragile blessing that allows spells to be deflected by parrying. That's really cool. Unfortunately, the shield provides very little physical defense, more of a lucky charm than a proper shield. And what was the other one? Fury to metal shields. Does this have the magic reduction? Captain Drummond's shield. No, it wasn't the one I was looking for. Well, it's worth looking at the Watch Dragon Parma as well. The black and white contrast depicts the ebb and flow of the fate of all things living in the serpentine dragons that watch over the march of time. The bearer of the shield will be blessed by great fortune in battle. That's cool. I think this was actually a fan contest thing. That this was the design that somebody had done in the community that was submitted, if I'm remembering correctly. Also, I don't know why I never noticed it, but those are primordial serpents there, right? They are quote-unquote dragons, but if you look and see the designs on their faces, they look like primordial serpents, which is really cool. So I wonder if they're specifically meant to be a reference to Frampton Koth, and interesting that we find it like in the area that is specifically a big old reference to an Orlando. What else? Let's take a look at the... Oh, we had the Leo ring, right? We're taking a look at that. The beloved ring of a dragon-slaying knight strengthens thrust weapons, counterattacks, which is such an esoteric thing. Like, I've never been able to make use of this thing in all of my years of playing Dark Souls games. But after many years of use, the ring's face is worn down, but close inspection reveals an engraved lion. So this leads to the debate about whether or not that was actually Ornstein or just another knight who kind of took up his mantle. I don't really have a need for that on this particular character. Let's take a look at his soul as well. The old Dragon Slayer is reminiscent of a certain knight that appears in old legends. Use a special soul of the old Dragon Slayer to acquire numerous souls or to create something of great worth. Right, so he doesn't fight the same way that Ornstein does. He's not as like tactically proficient. He's also got that dark like consumption to him that we didn't happen to see, but it is a part of his character. And that winds up just kind of, to me, reinforcing the idea that this whole area is meant to be like a sad, faded remembrance of Lordran that kind of got absorbed by a following society. But they didn't quite get the details right. It's like somebody shows you a like a picture and then asks you to draw it back from memory later on, like that sort of thing. Or like sketching out your dream.
Transient being. You have obtained proof you are worthy of joining our order. You may call yourself one of us and are free to plant your roots in this garden of the gods. Be proud. I, Targrey, do proclaim from this day you are a Knight of the Blue. Rejoice and bask in your new honor.
Cool. Okay.
You are no longer a mere vagabond. You are now a guardian, a Knight of the Blue. Proud Knight, take this. Wear this ring and shine light upon stone.
Shine light upon stone.
Then you will hear the voices of the Blue Apostles. Listen for their cries of help.
Oh, right.
And repel the malicious invaders. This is the proud work of the Knights of the Blue, the way they elevate themselves to a higher plane. I'll provide what you need. You may visit me at any time.
Okay, awesome. So this will, it's a nice way of participating in some player interactions without having to stand around and wait for your, summon sign to be manually called on, which I think that the summoning pools in Elden Ring were such a great addition.
Proud Knight, you may come to me, Targrey, for help.
Oh, cool. What do we got? Morningstar, Halberd, Monastery Charm, Holy Water Urn. An urn filled with crystal clear water, originally intended as a soothing potion. This water scalds the skin of undead and hollows. Interesting. In the old capital of Mira, an ancient, well-protected spring produces holy water, but the water has been difficult to acquire ever since Mira became embroiled in war. I somehow missed that. I never knew about that. That's really cool. So in Mira, there's some sort of font that produces water that is considered to be traditionally some sort of a healthy or maybe even sacred thing, and now it is eroding away. Like, it specifically harms the undead. Monastery Charm, Blessed Charm cures poison and restores HP. Okay, so here's another healing item. Many such charms were blessed and reconstructed ancient ceremonies carried out in the monastery of Lindelt, now known as the New Home of Miracles. Though it may lack the power of an original, in circumstances dire enough, an imitation can be quite enough. Yeah, so again, like, we're using things that used to have a previous meaning, a previous significance of some sort, have now been reincorporated. Some of them have been watered down, some of them are faded and hollowed out, some of them are like shadows of their former selves, and others are taking on new meaning and new utility based on the events that have been happening in this particular age. So it's kind of cool to see the item as well is so interestingly designed. It's got that sort of creepy eye inside of a circle, and the crosses and cross hatching, whatever the term for that is. The coin itself is kind of frayed and decayed around the edges. So that's really, really cool. Boltstone, an altered state of Titanite used to imbue weapons with lightning or to provide lightning reduction to shields. Sorcerers at the Melfian Magic Academy once attempted to imbue Titanite with various elements, but are said to have failed. Someone must have succeeded, though. What else would explain this stone? I don't know too much about Melfia, but that is cool. Heavenly Thunder. I'm kind of tempted to mess with miracles a little bit because I never really have done so. I think having like a lightning bolt or whatever, just to have the ability to use that as a ranged attack might be useful.
Knights of the Blue must rely upon. Present your token to test your strength. Do your work.
Okay, so I think I don't necessarily want to duel at this point, but I think it might make sense to go pick up a miracle from Lycia, and then the way is already clear. I can just walk there. Get a miracle from Lycia, and then figure out what it is I actually need to do to get to the point where I can use it, and then incorporate that into my build. So I'm really enjoying also just the process of organically discovering what I want my character to be as I go. And I feel like we've been given a decent amount of options. Like, we haven't really been given any ranged options, I don't think. Yeah, we got a bow and a crossbow. A variety of different shields. Some decent armor, you know. Haven't really picked up a... whatchamacallit? Haven't really gotten a whole lot of, like, dexterity-heavy weapons, like katanas or, like, bleed weapons or stuff like that. But I did get a bleed stone that we could potentially use to create one. So, the positive side, there's a positive and negative side to giving the player a lot of upgrade materials earlier on in the game. The positive, of course, being that you can experiment with a whole bunch of different things and not feel as though you've just wasted a bunch of your materials in order to do so. I did see that item back there.
Just speak. That's what.
Okay, so does this affect nearby people too? Or punishment, defendant life. Affects both the caster and nearby allies, so it does call that out when that happens. Force, lightning spear, homeward, guidance. Yeah, interesting. I'm pretty sure, like, most of the healing spells in Elden Ring also affect nearby people too, right? So, but I need 22 faith. That's actually kind of a lot. So I'll need to make a pretty big investment in my my character in order to get up there.
I'll offer your soul.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because right now I'm sitting at 5, so that's a lot of levels to be investing this early on. But I guess I kind of have everything else I need except for vigor and adaptability. So maybe I'll focus on getting those to 20 each, and then I'll see and start like putting some points towards faith, because it would be good to have that as a ranged option. Let me just go get that item, and then we can start moving on to the next area. But yeah, so something to keep in mind when talking about criticism of games over time is that when returning to a game like this after playing Elden Ring, and going back and being like, this game doesn't have X, Y, or Z feature. Like, okay, so for example, right, I'm gonna run forward here and then I'm gonna run back. Watch what happens. My character actually turns all the way around, like stops, turns all the way around, etc. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's different when I log on too. Let me see how that works. But in Elden Ring, I believe that also is much faster, and you don't lose as much momentum. Certainly in Sekiro, it's much more fluid. But let's see. Be careful not to fall off, though. Yeah, you fully stop, and then it cancels out your momentum, and then it resets, and then you go the other direction. And so I know some people might look at that and be like, well, clearly that's just clunky, right? But especially when compared to Elden Ring. But keep in mind that I don't think Dark Souls let you do that at all. So that in and of itself was still an innovation for this game. And it does feel like kind of grounded. That your character would need to take a moment to reset going the other direction. It doesn't feel as fluid as something like Devil May Cry. So they were leaning more towards realism than some of your more like fast-paced action games, I guess. But I also don't see that as a bad thing. As long as it doesn't feel like totally like, completely frustrating and shitty to actually like interact with. Oh, I forgot that thing too. Damn it. Okay. Here we go. But also, you know, granted that people might die and experience hollowing when going through a fight with Ornstein, with pseudo Ornstein. But again, like, the game gives you 5 fucking humanities or human effigies like right in front of the boss fight, and if you're gonna summon, like, now you have the ability to do so. It's pretty generous. I think with the use of human effigies too, I think there's maybe a bit of confusion, which I wonder if this is something the devs could or even should have tried to mitigate more. But the idea that, like, you should always be at 100% health whenever possible. So if you die to an enemy, the most logical thing for you to want to do is to immediately then try to... wait, why do I... Oh. Not sure why I got that. That's weird. So the most logical thing to do is just to immediately consume it to get your health back. But if you're only losing like 5% health every time you die, doesn't it make more sense to just like go and fight the boss 10 times and learn their attacks and kind of study up and use your following as an opportunity to study the movesets and understand its strengths and weaknesses, and then kind of come back later, then like use one human effigy to reset your health when you're ready, and you're like, okay, I've done all the trial runs, and now I can kind of fully commit to this run, and I'm gonna go for it, and I'm gonna sacrifice my item because I'm ready to commit, and then it like increases the stakes for that particular fight. So this mechanic that is, I guess, by some definition, like frustrating, because you feel like you're losing something every time you die, can also be pretty quickly and readily subverted and turned into something positive if you use your resources well. Oh, that's a little unfortunate, the feather going right through her. Oh no. Okay, well, let's just get a little bit more... I guess I can start putting some points into faith. It's actually quite a bit for level. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay. Just want to point out also that ever since I bought the hang on. So if I had saved some of those souls, if I had saved 15,000 souls or 12,000 souls, then yeah, then something I would be able to do. So at this point, right, we're maybe 5 hours into the game. 5 hours into the game, here are the different paths that I can take. I can go down into the Grave of Saints and into the gutter and all that. I can go, I just was in the Forest of Fallen Giants, but if I had like backed up by an hour, there would still, there is actually still technically stuff for me to do in there. I haven't gone and gotten the Fire Longsword, for example. So I have more stuff to do in the Forest of Fallen Giants. I have more stuff to do in Hade's Tower of Flame. In that I can go to the Undead Wharf and go to the Bastille through that route. I can also go to the Bastille through the other route. And I can also go to the Huntsman's Copse. So what's that, like 4 or 5 different paths that are open to me right now? Now, granted, those individual paths don't all like interlink and overlap with one another in the elegant way that some parts of Dark Souls 1 do. I guess it's a little bit more like Demon Souls in a way, in that you have these discrete areas that you're electing to go to one by one, but the number of different potential paths and different things that I could do if I get stuck in any one given area is pretty expansive. There's a lot of different options that are available to us.
Oh, hello there. This room is not as it seems, and only this lovely thing reveals the other path. And this, you lovely thing, only runs on miracles. Shall I provide you with one? To cast miracles, you must... Miracles began as tales told by gods. We preserve their will with law, pray to their greatness, and are blessed in return. You must nourish your faith. Miracles have been passed down through us since the first flame. Isn't it extraordinary to think they've existed since the very origins of the world? And now, you can have this power for yourself.
For a limited time only.
Out on the road to enlightenment. What is the first flame? Well, it's... You're not ready to comprehend it, I'm afraid.
She's so transparent.
You require more faith and more miracles, many more miracles. To cast miracle.
Okay. So I mean, if anybody was still doubting that this is hilarious. If anybody was still doubting that like this game was not connected to Dark Souls 1, the very explicit mention of the first flame is pretty exceptional. It's cool to think that I like that the storytelling that's being done with this character. Like, on her outfit, you know, she has what appear to be, I guess, like frayed traveling robes that could also be misconstrued as religious garb, but also she's got what appears to be something that's more like armor underneath, like leather armor with studs and rivets in it. I don't know if this was the same exact outfit that she was wearing before, or is it just like visually reminiscent of it, but more geared towards like revealing her dual nature. I think it's pretty obvious that she's lying to us, but also there's a lesson in that the person, when we pick up miracles, we're told that they are like stories of the gods, and that they're the power of them we're drawing from our faith in the gods. But then the person who tells us that story, like diegetically, who like reinforces that narrative, is also like duplicitous and manipulative. And so I think it should plant the seed in us that we should potentially maybe be skeptical towards the things that we read, like not just assume that there's a reliable narrator, you know? It's almost like when we pick up a miracle, we're learning about it through the voice of somebody who would have sold us a miracle, like her. So the story that we're being told from there's no illusory wall there. The story that we're being told from the character and the story that's being told to us from items are kind of at odds with one another. So that was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the little swish there. Oh no, I guess it's just his physics. Or not the physics, excuse me. It's probably not even physics enabled. It's probably literally just like an animation in his mesh. That's a little bit unfortunate. You know, that strikes me as maybe a little bit of a lack of polish there. That his garb is kind of clipping through the chair. I wonder if it would have been more... I wonder what the decision making was with this, because as you come up here, obviously, you know, the brighter, like higher contrast area in the center is drawing your gaze away from that guy, and his motion is pretty significant, like of his cape and of him moving his head. So I wonder if they originally had him moving a little bit more subtly, and then players were just running past him completely, and they probably had to try to figure out how to strike a balance between making him feel hidden and feel like someone that you were just stumbling across, but not make it fucking impossible for you to ever meet him. Anyway.
I don't know who you are, but leave me be. The frailty of the weak disrupts the dark. Leave me alone. I'm interested in one thing, dog. You haven't the gift. Leave me alone. I'm interested in one thing.
So I remember dark and death being associated with peace and comfort, and like cold warmth is a bit of a paradoxical way of putting it, but essentially, yeah, especially when you get to the undead crypt, the way that what's his name, Agdane, kind of explains it, is that death is a source of comfort and respite. And yet this guy over here, I can never remember his name, he seems to be telling us that the darkness is something that values strength or responds to strength specifically.
Believe me, I'm interested in one thing.
So what is it about his relationship with the dark that is based on like strength or power, whereas Govlan's, or not Govlan, Agdane's seems to be based more on like peace and comfort. I love how dark it is in here. Oh yeah, so that's great. Like darkening things a little bit right before you open up into an area that is yeah, the main sources of light are a source of poison and then an enemy. So this is something that I personally don't engage with. I feel like I should engage with it because here, I'll try. Hang on one second. I personally don't really love like I actually hate the fuck. Oh, I can't believe I survived. What the hell? Heal, 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 heal. Okay. Great, I didn't need to be poisoned. Okay, I'm gonna focus for a second. I'm not gonna talk while I fight this guy. Got heal, got heal. Managed to be able to do it. Okay, awesome. Oh, cool. That's a good reward for that. And I'm probably going to die. But let's see what I got. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So I was just about to say before I got into this that I really can't stand the jumping and like pseudo platforming mechanics in these games. I just think that they're always as much as I adore the games themselves, I really never feel like I have adequate control, and it's always a crapshoot. I will never again do the descent to the Flame of Chaos or like the three fingers in Elden Ring anymore without explicitly looking at a guide, because I did it myself the first time. It took like 2 hours and it was miserable, and I don't feel like I gained anything from it really, other than I guess the satisfaction, but it was satisfaction that was tempered greatly by enormous frustration at that whole thing. But anyway, that whole encounter was really cool. It's a little strange to see, though, like one of those, what are they called? The basilisks without, usually they're associated with death and petrification. I think if they had put a petrifying thing down there, that would have probably been overkill in the eyes of a lot of people, so it probably makes sense that they didn't do that. The poison is so fast acting, I forgot about that, because we were just talking about poison in Elden Ring recently, and the speed at which you actually like accrue poison damage is increased in this game, as well as the rate at which it burns away, which is cool. It just feels like it's adding more urgency to the poison, but I guess part of the point of poison is that it takes a while. It's sort of slowly eating away at you. So yeah, it's a bit of a departure in the way that they've implemented it, which I think is still effective. It's just a different relationship that you have with it than you might previously have had. So I don't have that much to say about the lore or anything here, but like what the explanation for it is. But I love the fact that there's just a big, menacing, gaping chasm in the middle of this room. The enemies dangling off of things and pulling themselves up is nice. Is pretty awesome for setting atmosphere. The windows are boarded up with wood, and on the other side you can actually break the windows open to let light in and then see better. And then of course you have the hidden door that leads into this place. So this one room in and of itself has a lot going on. It's pretty impressive in terms of a lot of really cool ideas kind of crammed into a small space. And you get this ambush over here with the bandits kind of coming up at you. Pretty cool. That bandit's moveset is pretty cool. He's dual wielding. One of his weapons is a broken sword, so it kind of shows you that, again, these characters aren't like doing very well. They're not really having a good day. But that's fuck. Do I have any like throwing knives or anything? I do. I don't know if I'll be able to get anything done with these, but we'll see. Get back up a little bit. Nope. Oh, I got him. That might have been a mistake. Okay, that wasn't too bad. But yeah, like, we had a little ambush over here, and then we saw another enemy in the distance who was gearing up to ambush us again. And so, nice that we had a chance to kind of turn the tables on the enemy, coming out from this very dark place into a very well-illuminated area with this terrifying, ominous, like, cathedral or coliseum in the distance. It's very, very chilling, a nice visual. The color palette here too, I don't know if I could explain why this is per se, but I definitely associate it with necromancy. It's part of I guess because it kind of looks like a bloated corpse, like it looks like a decaying corpse. The hollows themselves like have those hues of sickly greenish yellow and white, and leading into the darker blues and greens certain parts of their body. They also have like red, obviously, but color wise it's very evocative of like death and decay, and it makes you feel like this whole area, this whole place is just dead and rotting. It's great. Fucking love it. What the hell am I doing wrong here? Can I survive this? This is weird. I don't remember this. I feel like I'm going to die. We'll see. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Kind of hard to judge the jump distance sometimes. But yeah, but I can show you here, like if I break the windows, lets the light in. And I feel like that's something that players are also reasonably likely to find out themselves just by swinging at the enemies that are coming through here. Oh, cool. Oh, cool, yeah. Nice little ambush there. Took some damage, but didn't really feel like it was too harsh. And I think there are... Merchant, yeah. It's another reference to that merchant from Dark Souls 1. I think they're doing a good job, too, of like, oh, your attention's being pulled over here, you're getting ambushed from behind. It seems pretty clear at this point that this whole area is going to be crawling with bandits, and that there's going to be traps, like people ambushing you all over the place. And I feel like at this point we've been adequately primed for that concept, and also seeing ambushes coming from different directions and having a chance to respond to them, to get used to them, to get used to how much damage you're dealt. So yeah, there is a bit of a gank squad going on here, but it's appropriate for the characters. It's not like they're just throwing random enemies at us to surprise us for the hell of it. It's part of the narrative of the space, and it's also part of, the enemies that have been selected for the ambushing are appropriate, and the pacing at which they're escalating that threat, I think, is totally fair. One thing I was going to say before is I don't really love the visual effect of the persistent stuff from the rings. I think that can be a little much. I feel like that persistent glowing orange is not ideal in my opinion. So again, maybe I should go and actually light the bonfire before I try this. Fine. So I'm about to engage with the platforming mechanics, which means I'm about to have a bad time again. I do feel like the people's criticisms that this particular bonfire is completely redundant with the one before it, they're pretty well founded. I don't think we need this. I think this should have just been a treasure chest or something. I feel like it was a treasure chest in vanilla. I have to go back and play to be sure, but I don't know why we would ever need a chest, a whatchamacallit, a bonfire there when there's one like right the fuck over there. So. Now that being said, I'm probably gonna, what the hell? Oh, cool. I'm probably gonna switch up the area because I feel like I want more ranged options for dealing with those birds, and I don't really have anything with the birds. Excuse me, the fucking poison moths. Pretty sure they're not birds, and I don't really have that right now. So, excuse me. Okay, so probably going to fail this. Really hard to judge how far this is, but let's see and learn from my predecessors. Oh, they just jumped too far. Okay, so I have to go like this. Nope. That sucks. I hate that. That forced roll at the end is very, very frustrating. And I know there's something valuable there, but I really don't want to try and fail to go through that process. So I'm going to leave it for now. I guess, given that like narratively and visually speaking, hollowing is technically a I go to No Man's Wharf next. Hollowing is technically like a punishment, quote unquote. Like, narratively, you're supposed to be a human, and being hollow is not a good thing. Like a state that you want to cultivate, you want to avoid it. And it also has a like a pejorative quality to it, where your character like is visually decaying. Now, granted, you can't really see it much behind your armor, but now I can. And so I think, you know, especially if you go through, I'm sure a lot of people remember, and Donkey kind of pointed this out, Video Game Donkey, in one of his videos, that when you go through all the trouble of making your character cool and or beautiful and customized to your fancy, and the first thing that happens in Dark Souls is that you wake up in a shitty toilet prison cell with a gross, weird, stretchy flesh hot dog man as your character. It's like, why does my guy look like this? Like, what's wrong with him? Spent all this time, you know, crafting my character lovingly, and now he's just like this wrinkled like sack of dried flesh. It's awful. Which of course is like a great little moment to introduce you to the tone of the game, right? But it can be, regardless of that, it can be kind of discouraging, I guess, on some level, to feel like you're going around as a lesser version of yourself. Again, kind of repeating myself here, but that is exactly what's intended. And so I think the Dark Souls 2 hollowing mechanic, especially given the fact that it's not like you're either hollow or you're human, you gradually progress more and more and become more decrepit, more decayed, and all that. I think it's really a really great mechanic. But also, if you feel like it's a punishment and you play very, very well for a long period of time, and then you make one little mistake and now you have to go around looking like this, as a reminder of your mistake, unless you quote unquote waste an item, like you consume an item, then like I can get the frustration, is basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, so here's another knight like you saw before. This one has a different weapon and is a total pushover. Okay. A little anticlimactic. I seem to remember that these undead bone shards, or sublime bone dust, that in the original game they were kind of scattered around more places, and their placement was a little bit more varied, and for whatever reason they tied them specifically to those I think they're called Cyan's Knights in this game, in Scholar of the First Sin. So I guess it makes it a bit more predictable and reliable. If you see one of those knights, you know there's a bone shard. But given that the knights aren't, they're just quote unquote standard enemies. You know, they're not. It's not like the pursuer was guarding one or something like that. It feels a little like, why are they going out of their way to kind of homogenize that experience, and for what, to kind of make you fight like this relatively generic encounter. That being said, there could be something interesting lore-wise and story-wise as to why the Science Knights are specifically like guarding the bone dust. Well, that's a cool little ambush there. I didn't even see him in the water. Nice. Smart little placement. So I think this is... Yeah, so I remember talking last time about how seeing the basilisks in that area in the tutorial... Okay, can you stop though? Seeing the basilisks in this area in the tutorial kind of helped... what's the word for it? Like, give a preview to the idea that there would be an association between them and petrification. And here we are. We see another one of these and another one of these statues. So, let's see. I don't have a fragrant branch of yore. So I think that that's a pretty good, you know, subtle way of indicating, like, once you figure this shit out, you know, or once you have your first experience with unblocking something with a fragrant branch of yore, which will probably be the lady whose name I can never remember, who has been frozen into a statue, then, you know, you'll probably get that pretty quickly, and then piece together all those other things, like, okay, those enemies must be related to petrification, and I just need to make sure to keep that in mind when I'm engaging with them. And if I see them running around, I should also be on the lookout for potentially petrified things that I can unpetrify. Let's see. I remember hearing a review of this part of the game, or like hearing a review that IGN had done, I think it was, of Dark Souls 2 when it first came out, and they specifically had called out No Man's Wharf as being a place that when you spend time in it for a long time, it starts to erode away at your sanity, because by this point you've kind of come down a long pathway and you don't really see the way out, and you don't know how long you're going to be stuck down here, and so going through that process can potentially just have that Dark Souls style effect on you, where you're like, you know, kind of desperate for a way out. But I don't, you know, in retrospect, think that that commentary was really apropos, because you can always get out with the bonfire, right? That's something that was, even though the bonfire teleportation is convenient, has its benefits, something that was absolutely lost was just the fact that you can never really feel lost the way that you did in Dark Souls 1, because you're only ever a quick bonfire trip away from going back home or going to some completely different area. I, more so than the interconnected world, the thing that I miss about Dark Souls 1 is just that feeling of getting totally lost and stranded and almost like desperately trying to find some way out, you know, to get a fucking reprieve. I'm choosing to participate with the torch mechanic here, not because I feel like I really need to, but there is something very satisfying about I want to die. Come on. Okay, hang on a second, I gotta reset. There's something very satisfying about the process of going through a dark place and seeing it lit up. That stagger animation is really excessive, in my opinion. But yeah, also, I like the relationship that we have with this asshole archer. You know, as frustrating as it was to kind of get pecked away at a little bit. The damage I was taking was manageable, even if it wasn't my, an ideal situation. And now we have this guy up here, who we can take revenge on. That's great. Nice little encounter. Well designed. The torches also in places like this that are a little difficult to navigate through and remember where you've been. Torches are just a great way of, leaving like marks on the wall or leaving a breadcrumb trail or whatever, just to kind of demonstrate to yourself where you've been previously. I do like the fact that they have some behaviors here of the hollows to slash away at things if they get in their way. Very basic kind of behavior, but also a smart one from a... Oh, look at the way that the shadows are like ripple under the water. That's so cool. Pretty basic thing, but it's one of those things that's very impressive to me as a developer, because they I think it was probably one of those things where they like needed to solve this problem of enemies getting stuck on things, and they were able to leverage the behaviors that they already had, like the normal attack behaviors, and basically just reincorporate them and trigger them under different conditions. Again, that's not like the most advanced fucking AI, quantum computing thing in the universe, but it's smart, and it's something that I think has a very significant return on investment for relatively little overhead. Granted, I'm assuming that it wasn't a nightmare to code. It could be. And then, of course, we have this guy who doesn't seem to realize. Oh, hello. Also find myself toggling between lock-on and like turning the lock-on mechanic on and off, or locking on sometimes and not locking on other times, because it's just, it has situational benefits. A lot of the other games I just kind of leave it on constantly. But here, I'm kind of finding that I'm treating it more like a dynamic tool, and turning it on when I need it and turning it off when I don't. Here, meaning in Dark Souls 2 versus some other games. Also really like the fact that, I don't know what they're meant to be, but I guess, yeah. So I'm guessing that the reason why these houses look like this and have like these curved domed roofs is that they were parts of ships or boats that were discarded and kind of cast away. And I'm gonna get to Lucatiel, don't worry. And so kind of suggests to me that maybe this might be a bad idea. 1 second. Kind of suggests to me that this area, once might have been a more active port, and now as the kingdom sort of fell into disrepair with nothing to do anymore, people just kind of like repurpose the ships to build these ramshackle homes. It's kind of a cool narrative. Again, tying into that consistent theme of taking old things that had a prior purpose, and then that purpose being completely exhausted and irrelevant, and now being incorporated into something new that only has like a partial aspect of its old identity.
What is it? I don't know you, and you don't know me. Things are better that way. You are an odd one. Normally, people keep a safe distance when they see this mask. But you... I'm called Lucatiel. From the land of Mira to the far east, across the mountains. They say Drangleic brims with powerful souls. And so I came to claim my share. But what a strange place. Even the rumors did not prepare me. You are an odd one indeed. I've always made a point of avoiding people, while you've made a point of engaging me. I can see that you are mid-journey. If you require assistance, I will help you. I come from Mirror, a land of knights. My sword is always ready. Don't hesitate to call upon me. Whatever happens, I won't be missed.
When comparing this, obviously an unfair comparison, but when comparing interactions like this to something like your Baldur's Gate 3s or whatever, it does make me kind of realize that I'm burning my torch, but that's okay. It does make me kind of feel like that was a little bit abrupt. Not entirely out of character. Like, she seems to have a nihilistic edge to her. She's saying, like, if I die, then so be it. Like, nobody's gonna miss me, essentially. But literally talking to her twice as her saying, oh, wow, nobody's ever talked to me before. Okay, I guess I'll die for you. Like, like I'm willing to risk my life going into combat with you, rather. It feels a little stilted, I guess. But I don't necessarily think that's a deal breaker or anything. It's just, I could definitely see certain characters in From Software games maybe benefiting from some more gradual progression of your relationship with them. Everything with the characters in this game is pretty abrupt. Like, they all have maybe 50 lines of dialogue, maybe 100 at most, and they're stretched out over a very, very long time. You form little bonds with them. And I guess you could argue that if you spent too much time with them, then it would feel like you had a companion more actively and you weren't really facing the world alone. And then if they wanted to cultivate a feeling of loneliness, that would be contrary to that goal. Also, going for long periods of time without seeing each other and then reuniting and taking on a boss together, that's a really cool feeling. And you can't cultivate that feeling unless you give the player long periods of time without actually like seeing them and engaging with them. So I think it's probably fine. Maybe a few more lines of dialogue, or maybe she could have done something like Pate did, where she would have been hanging back and saying, I'm not going to talk to you, but then you go through this whole thing and she says, oh well, you know, it's you've come back after all that, you still came back to find me after you did the thing. Okay, I guess now I'll follow you. Like, she has to be convinced a little bit, you know what I mean? But anyway, I fucking love this character. I love her design. It doesn't necessarily feel, it feels like it diverges away from the aesthetic of a lot of other things in the series, in the way that like Marvelous Chester's outfit did, but still feels like grounded enough to basically just feel like it's kind of coming from an exotic land as opposed to being like out of time. Just really, really cool mixture of like fine cloth and like ruffled arms, and then the armor as well with the gold engravings. It's all really, really beautiful. It looks like there's a crown that's kind of sticking up from the top of the hat, if you see that. It could be something else, but it does kind of look that way. That spike at the top, I don't know if it's meant to be a feather, but it's obviously, it gives the hat like a very kind of aggressive, dangerous look to it, while still retaining its elegance. And then of course the mask as well, very, very cool. And a sigil. I wonder if that was something, if it's meant to be sort of similar to the prisoner's mask in Elden Ring, where it's like prisoners or people who are unsavory, who've been sort of cast aside or whatnot, are forced to wear the masks, like a form of punishment, or just a sign of I think it winds up being like related to her being an undead, maybe being cast out or something like that. So yeah, so a really very compelling, in my opinion, character design overall. So we have these oil barrels here, what we need to be careful of. I do feel like I'm starting to be a bit more, not careless, but aggressive and confident with the way that I move and stuff. I feel like I have to be like I can kind of swing more with wild abandon, and I'm sure I'm about to eat my words. Yep, yep. Okay, I why the fuck did I have to say that out loud? Oh, cool. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, 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 okay. So, I like that. I like that a lot. Not getting eaten by dogs. The environment having this thing that's a hazard, a hazard which can be combined with the different enemy types can essentially collaborate with each other to create and then ignite environmental hazards, which is pretty cool. That sound is a little distracting, but also really cool. Talk about that in a second. The oil barrels are something that I think is being introduced here that weren't there previous, or that haven't been in previous parts of the game. The ability to ignite them with a torch by rolling into them is really cool, as well as the sort of implicit suggestion that you can do so with other means. Like, yeah. And then the ability to have those oil puddles then, like, potentially be used to harm enemies, as well as generate light. There's a lot going on here in this little space. And then, yeah, the design of that torch thing is really cool. Lighting up the whole area is really cool. This area as well, thus far, has been branching out in multiple different places. And if you talk about the sort of progression through the area... Ow, shit, okay. Probably gonna die. Consider the progression through the area as well. We've started off in a cave and then progressed onto a dock that has... I probably shouldn't waste that. Progressed onto a dock in the water. We entered the water... what the hell? There were certain parts of the water that were deeper and more difficult to like walk through, so we got an introduction to that kind of mechanic. There's been a bunch of torches that are around that we're capable of using, and we got the oil barrels, we got the dogs as a new enemy type. So this isn't necessarily one of the most memorable areas from the game overall. Did I drop that? What the hell? That was weird. Thought I had an item. This isn't necessarily one of the areas that most people like will remember most fondly when talking about the game or whatever, but there's still a lot going on here. Using a Pharos Lockstone to completely change the lighting environment of the area, that having a tangible effect on your relationship with the enemies, that those sort of herding those transformed pyromancers into is this a mimic? I can't remember. I don't think so. Okay. Those transformed pyromancers into various places to go away from the fire. Really, all in all, just a lot going on here and a lot of cool ideas. Also, just hearing the sounds of those fucking things in the distance and wondering about like what horror might be, you know, waiting for you. It's around the corner. That's really cool too. I guess it might have been cooler, or additionally cool anyway, if you had heard a burst of that sound specifically when you use the Pharos Lockstone to kind of indicate that what you did just pissed them off even more. But it's not a huge deal. That's not the case. Yeah, the design of that thing, it's weird. The design of that thing actually feels like more kind of ornate and high class, for lack of a better phrase, than a lot of the other stuff around here that's all ramshackle. So you have to wonder if this was more of a refined location previously, and then has just really fallen into disrepair, turned into like a smuggler's cove essentially. It used to be much more than that. Varangian cuffs. I want to read up about the Varangians in a second. There was a guy up here. Yeah, let me take a look at that. Cuffs worn by Varangians that terrorize nearby seas. The coastline stretches far in northern Drangleic. Beyond this northern seas, an unexplored continent tend to be the home of things inhuman. Interesting. So I'm guessing that the Varangians were meant to be like a marauding group of pirates that would scour the coastline, and they had dealings with maybe they had dealings with Drangleic, but also, you know, were exposed to things that were more unknown, more eldritch or whatnot. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed, honestly, with the amount of things that are going on here. It also feels like, you know, my character's pretty strong relative to where we're at in the level right now, or where we're at in the game. Like, I think my first couple of playthroughs, I was definitely my item was hang on, was the item beneath the ground and now it's above? I think so. I think that might be a bug. But yeah, like I definitely remember coming through places like this with far less overall power. But that being said, I feel like we're getting a good, solid, lengthy gauntlet of enemies, a variety of enemy encounters. This visual of the ship kind of crashed up on the rocks there is really cool. We have archer enemies at a distance kind of harrying us, not necessarily doing a bajillion points of damage every hit. Doesn't feel like super unfair, but we do have to kind of keep our wits about us and not get crowded out. These enemies are really, really cool and creepy looking, and yet, despite the fact that they do a lot of damage and they are dangerous, we can, you know, work around them if we're careful. There used to be a bonfire there. I think they may eventually, yeah, they do eventually kind of come out, even though they don't love the fire. If you listen closely, you can hear a human element to the sound. To my ears, it sounds like a it sounds like a bit of a human female vocal. I'm gonna see if I can use some range tools on them because I'm low on health. I don't really want to get up like right in their faces. Probably don't have enough to really deal with them, and I don't want to waste that stuff. So what else do I have in terms of ranged things? So I have a bow. Do I have any arrows for the bow? Oh, I have a few. Okay. So yeah, I like this. I really genuinely enjoy it when resource scarcity creates an incentive to experiment with stuff. Like, granted, my bow quote unquote sucks, right? I'm not doing a lot of damage with it or whatever, but and you can use bows to cheese encounters for sure, especially in Iron Keep. Like, if you get some iron arrows, you can just invalidate, or like not invalidate, trivialize. You can trivialize a lot of that stuff. But I could go back to the bonfire. You know, I could decide to kind of reset the place, and now that I know the lay of the land a little bit better, I could just come back here later. But I have tools, and so why not use them? And when I am incentivized by the constraints that have been placed on me to try new things, I wind up discovering things that I like. So this crossbow I actually really like. I think I'll actually, you know, maybe upgrade that and try and see if I can infuse it with something, because that was really cool. Now I think there's an ambush here. Yeah. So that is cool, right? Like, I can't believe, but I've heard some people. I shouldn't say I can't believe and be condescending, but like, I just strongly disagree. I've heard people say that they hate that because it's like, why would you ever expect for an enemy to be able to punch through the wall? Well, you probably won't be able to expect it right away, but the concept of enemies that can destroy the environment is a really cool one. And we've seen stuff like the Ornstein battle that we just had. I'm gonna call him Ornstein, even though he's maybe not literally Ornstein. He was able to destroy the stone pillars, so it's not something that's even like all that crazy or out of the ordinary. It just makes the levels feel more alive, like less static. It makes the enemies feel more resourceful in that they have command over the environment. They're not just passive. So I think inherently, like, adding reactive environments, adding destructible meshes or whatever, just makes it's just a boon for your level if you can do it. So I don't really. So that being said, you have to give your a chance though to know that it's a possibility, because if they I guess have no idea, that sucks. If they have no idea whatsoever, then oh shit, they'll probably feel cheated. But sooner or later, you have to do it for the first time, right? There has to be a first time, and I think that making the first time something where you open a door and then yeah, so this is actually really fair, actually, now when I think about it. So you open the door and you can fit through the door frame, but the enemy can't fit through the door frame. So most players' instinct is naturally, I think, going to be to back the fuck up and go away from the enemy, so you're over here, and then the enemy smashes the door frame down, and then it also takes down the wall with it. And if you look closely at the door beforehand, you can see, or the wall beforehand, you can kind of see that the wall's color and texture and all that is a little bit different from what's around it. So, and you can also find other examples in this area of destructible walls. So when you put all of that together, really, this is not the first time that the game has, like, exposed you to the idea of a destructible part of the environment. But it is, you know, even if it were, you still need to, even if it were the first time, it's a pretty fair, pretty calculated, pretty reasonable way of doing so. And yes, there was that guy who ambushed me at the top of the stairs, but by this point, you really should be expecting an ambush. You should be planning for it. And I did, and I was able to kind of use the height advantage to my advantage. Yeah, I don't know where Gavlon is. Oh, interesting. Is this gonna be like the Ultra Great Sword? Yeah. Cute. I think this one has a trap. Probably gonna kill me. Go back there. Oh. That wasn't too bad. Am I fat rolling? Take the helmet off. Yeah. Or mid rolling. Okay, so with that being said, we're getting close to the shortcut here, and I think I'll probably end it either after the shortcut or after the Flexile Sentry. Shame that my summon sign didn't get picked up. I haven't seen any other summon signs either. But it's okay. Still gotta be careful though, because, you know, I feel pretty powerful, but also still Dark Souls. There's the fucking door. Okay, that felt pretty good. Nice little moment of panic there. See, that's the other thing too, like, I know that the narrative around life gems and stuff is that, oh, I should light that torch. I don't know if there's anything that happens if you light all the torches, but it is kind of satisfying to see the whole place light up. I'm tempted to get that item. Where's the most recent torch? But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with this area so far. Don't really have anything negative to say about it. Those moments of panic too are, oh, that's what I was going to say about the life gems, right? So I think those moments of panic, and then also feeling like you can recover from that panic, kind of reset, so to speak, are really important and something that makes, you know, the Souls series as special as it is, or like contributes to it being so special. Um, and oh, that's another thing that I didn't think of too, is that by this point in entering this room, we should have learned that uh, the light winds up repelling those like pyromancers, and so I could have just gotten a fucking torch, and if I had been paying attention and using torches throughout, I would have been lighting the torches as I was going, and therefore I should have on hand an easy resource to then get rid of those things and like push them back. That sound. Huh. An eerie, distant roaring noise. That was really cool. But yeah, you're sort of being rewarded for being curious enough to light these torches, because then you'd be like, oh, I see, I should probably go and grab a light, because it will be helpful in repelling these enemies. Yeah, it's just such a cool moment. I don't even have much of an explanation or analysis for it, although the flames do kind of look like the ghost flame in Dark Souls 3, so sort of like they were already feeling out their like aesthetic or color palette for it. I guess that's a little lame that the ship only moves like 20 feet and then the guy just sort of teleports onto it like that. With a higher production value, they could have made that maybe cooler, more epic, whatever, like having it come out of the sea or something. But, you know, considering every game has budget constraints, and this is no exception for sure. And I feel like what they did was still like pretty evocative and pretty cool and chilling and exciting without breaking the bank. Also finding that yeah, so talking about those moments of panic before, it's true that you can buy a oh, I gotta get another torch. Do I have a flame butterfly? I probably don't. It's true that you can get a lot of individual healing items, and that those healing items, there's a couple of them there, that those individual healing items can start to stack up, and that can, you know, not have the same kind of effect on your ability to mete out your healing as you would have had in Dark Souls 1. It's like a different relationship. And if you don't like that, that's totally fair. I will say, though, that so far I have felt like I don't want to spend my souls on life gems. I want to spend them on upgrades for my weapon or for my character. And so when I buy those healing items, they are still a pretty precious resource. And when I find them in the level, they're also a fairly precious resource. And I feel like they're just enough to kind of keep me topped up and give me enough to survive without you know, having them invalidate anything. They've become a meaningful option that I can use as an alternative and a way to sustain myself when I start to run out of healing and keep pressing further. And that calculus that you make in or like that cost reward benefit analysis, whatever you call it, that you make in Dark Souls 1 with whether or not to push forward onto the bonfire, can basically be extended, not exactly indefinitely, but almost indefinitely, right? Torch here, I gotta remember to come back and get it. Because as long as you keep finding, hello friend. I don't want to attempt this. This is gonna end poorly. Yeah, hurrah for fleeing, that's a good idea. as much as you can potentially invalidate certain encounters, or sorry, I keep saying invalidate, I mean to say trivialize. As much as you can render certain things much easier for yourself by spamming life gems later in the game. What winds up happening for me anyway is that early in the game, they give me just that little bit of extra feeling of hope to continue progressing forward. That, okay, I found one more life gem, I can go for just a little bit longer. Oh, I found a radiant life gem, I can go for even longer. And it kind of encourages, it's at least in this level, it's encouraging me to keep on pushing just a little bit further, a little bit further. Whereas, you know, in Dark Souls 1, once you ran out of your healing item, whatever it was, I shouldn't waste the fire arrow, but oh, it doesn't work anyway. Once you know, run out of your Estus, there's nothing else, right? You can maybe heal, you can use a miracle, but unless you're a faith build, that's probably not going to happen. So I know that these things poison me. And I pick something that has enough. Yes! Okay, that was awesome. I never used whips, but I remembered that they had an extended range. So even though I can't really use them super effectively, use the whip super effectively in and of itself, I can still use it as a tool to help me in the environment. And this is what I think some people might miss if they just focus on like the min-maxing aspect of the game. The oh cool, I got a fragrant branch, see, that's great. Is just the fact that like there's a lot of stuff. That destructible wall was pretty well telegraphed. Fuck off. Thank you. I hate the lizards so much. I'm not going to defend them though. But yeah, I'm not going to probably ever use that in combat, but still, I got a chance to kind of mess around with this new tool. It might not have any combat utility for me whatsoever, but it still had a cool little moment with it. You know what I mean? Royal Soldier's Ring I think is really good as well. Let's take a look. Increases maximum load, yeah. These rings were granted to warriors who distinguish themselves in the service of King Vendrick. The king favored simple warriors who stake their every battle on strength alone. Cool. Yeah, so, you know, this is something that somebody else pointed out. I didn't discover this for myself, so I want to give credit. But basically, they were like, I heard the sound of the crystal lizard there, and then I saw the patch on the wall, and so I thought to attack it. And then not only do you get the reward from the crystal lizard, but you also get like this cool little bit of environmental storytelling with the soldier's ring, etc., etc. But again, like, not something that's super overtly telegraphed, not something that's forced down the player's throat or anything like that. You're really just kind of invited with a gentle audio cue to investigate this thing, and rewarded for your curiosity, and rewarded for, I guess, being a little suspicious of the fact that the environment is, like, looks the way that it does. Hello, Gavlan. There's two characters, one named Navlan and one named Gavlan, and they're not related at all. This is a really great shortcut. So this is, you know, Huntsman's Copse is kind of goofy for its placement of those multiple bonfires close together, but this level is an example of a level that does have, I think, a very sensible bonfire placement. There's just one. It's all the way back there, and there's a major shortcut that you unlock by like kicking down the bridge to kind of cross between those two parts of the dock. And then there's also this one over here. So there's multiple shortcuts actually. Yeah, I think this might be one of the better design levels in the game. Like, the more that I play through it, why doesn't it never come up in like discussions or whatever? It's weird.
Who are you? I, Gavlan. Gavlan will, Gavlan deal.
Gavlan wants soul. Many soul. What you want. With Gavlan, you will, you deal.
I will say, this is nitpicky of me, but this is the sort of thing that if I was like working in QA, I would probably file a bug about this. He probably shouldn't be making drinking glug 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 sounds while he's also actively talking to you and laughing. That is a little strange. He also, maybe this is just like one of those like cute fantasy things, like, do we really need to worry about how Darth Vader drinks through his helmet, or like he just figures it out, right? It doesn't matter. But you could look at this and say like, okay, well, how the fuck is that beer or whatever he's drinking actually getting into his mouth? Where even is his mouth? Does he even have a mouth? He just looks like a sentient beard that's possessed a body. So there's definitely some like quirks with him, but I really do love the armor. It's so weird and patchwork. It basically looks like just a bunch of like stone slabs that have been fitted together with like rebar, like strands of rebar or something going through it, if that's the right term for it. It's so weird and quirky. I guess it doesn't quite fit some of the aesthetics of other things in the game, so you could maybe bounce off of it. That would be fine. But still, it's I don't know. I love him. I love his appearance. I love his mannerisms. Not a very deep character, but still a very, very visually interesting one, distinctive and all that. And the other thing that I would maybe file as a bug would be if you look at, it's kind of hard to tell, but look at the stripes or whatever they are. The no, they're not stripes. What would I call them? They're like the air holes or like the vertical slits in his helmet. If you look at the bottoms of them, you can kind of see that they're twisting and bending and whatnot, because it looks like they're deforming the mesh at the bottom of the helmet in order to, they're kind of like flexing it and stretching it as he moves. Or, well, maybe not. Maybe it's just it might just be a trick of the light, because the shadows are also making it kind of hard to accurately gauge their size and shape. So it might be an optical illusion. But yeah, oh, right there. Yeah, right there. When his head goes further down and like kind of bends in towards his beard, it looks like the bottom part of the helmet is kind of like compressing in a little bit. Not 100% sure. Somebody with better like eyes could probably see if that's real or not. Poise is good. I can actually buy this. And I'll buy some of these too. I like the fact also that I forget if it's the case with Gavlan here, but most of the enemies in the game, or the NPCs rather in the game, if you spend enough souls with them, they will unlock, like, they'll give you items, or they'll unlock different things that they sell, or they'll progress their quest lines. So it feels like you're incentivized to engage with the merchants pretty well.
Gavlan will. Gavlan wants soul. What you. With Gavlan, you.
Not very talkative.
Gavlan. What?
Yeah, one thing I will say though is that the poison arrows are
Many.
kind of I wouldn't exactly say overpowered. I guess I'll take this off since we'll be summoning. Are kind of overpowered, and depending on the level of like frustration that I have with a given playthrough, they almost feel like a requirement sometimes. Do I actually have any arrows left? I have a couple. Yeah, they almost feel like a bit of a requirement, and so I wind up needing to go find Gavlan to have that option, and unfortunately it becomes pretty hard to locate later in the game. When you do find him, it does also feel a little bit silly to just, well, I don't know. I wind up having criticisms of Dark Souls 2 and then sort of talking myself out of them. What I was going to say is that it feels kind of weird to have to like be in the Iron Keep and wanting to be fighting things there, and then feel like you got to go all the way out of your way to the doors of Pharos or wherever the hell he shows up, just to track him down to buy some arrows. But on the other hand, isn't that also kind of cool? Like, you want to prepare for this difficult area, and so you go find like your mysterious trader friend, like one who trades, not one who betrays. And with that friend, he's then able to supply you for tools for this difficult task that you have to do. I don't know. Seems kind of cool. It's almost like John Wick going into whoever he goes to talk to at the Continental or whatnot, and he goes into the secret room and pulls out all like the different guns that he chooses from, you know, like James Bond gearing up before a mission. It's cool. You gotta go find your fucking weirdo with the Kinect. But then it does start to feel like... I remember in my first or second... I think my second playthrough, which was a... more of a... my first one was a sorcery playthrough, and then I did a melee playthrough. And I definitely remember getting stuck at the... Iron Keep with all of those... Alon Knights. And wound up just relying pretty heavily on using... Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Wound up relying pretty heavily on using those poison arrows to whittle them down. And so, in order to kind of like... I'm going to try and do a boss rush here and see, like, run through if I can get... I know Carillion's over there, but I'm going to ignore him for now. That felt like basically, anytime I wanted to go to the Iron Keep or to something like that was like a more challenging area, I needed to first go to Gavlon and spend a shitload of souls getting poison arrows, and then go to Malentia and spend a shitload of souls getting life gems. And then my experience of actually playing through those areas would basically be like spam a bunch of arrows and spam a bunch of gems, spam a bunch of arrows, spam a bunch of gems. So clearly rushing here was the wrong choice. Okay, alright, okay. I see. I understand. Thank you. Jesus. Come on. Damn it. Overextended. Oh well. Honestly, that was annoying. But I don't feel like it was totally unfair, because I literally, like, I'm in an underground, like, smuggling cove that is owned by pirates, and I just decided, yes, I see, thank you. I just decided that I was going to run through the whole area like an idiot, right in the face of all these pirates and, like, slavers and whatnot. And then I'm, like, surprised that they tried to stop me. It was a little unreasonable. But let's see. We can maybe see who's chasing me and deal with these guys first. No. Maybe their aggro, not aggro radius, but their spatial restriction is a little bit too much. The radius at which they the range rather, within which they will continue to pursue you, I think might be a bit high. That being said, let's see. You know, I had that experience of getting swarmed, and then I took my time and made a very small adjustment to my strategy. Came up here, got the high ground, took out this guy. Okay, so we got more coming in. Bit of a gang squad here. It might be too many enemies, might be too many. But now I have the high ground, and I can just hold position here and defend. So I do think, like, saying that, you know, these enemies potentially have too much of a wide aggro radius, and maybe they should like go back home and stop bothering you. Might be fair, but at the same time, there are ways that you can deal with that, and I feel like the narrative arc or whatever that I just went on by learning to exploit the terrain was a positive one. So here's something though. I thought Lucatiel was available for this boss, and I think you need to summon her and have her survive a couple of boss fights to be able to progress her questline, right? So do I need to go back and get her? Where's her summon sign? Did I run past it? I can't remember. I'll have to go check. Oh, wasn't it on the wharf somewhere? In a while. Let's see if I can find it. If I can't find it quickly, then I can just go and do the boss solo, but it would definitely be nice. Maybe it's back where I found her. Okay, that stagger, that amount of like having an emotional meltdown. You know what it looks like when that happens? Have you ever seen those like dash cam footage of people who try to like scam for car accidents for insurance money, and they just like do this protracted you know, fake fall over? It was a bit like that. I was hoping that the poise ring would help mitigate that somewhat, but it doesn't seem to have been very effective. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like once I've completed the puzzle of the area, like I've done the homework assignment, so to speak, of going through, and I just want to get to the boss. At this point, they haven't designed this area such that like I need to micromanage my progression through the level and then include the boss fight in that, like we were talking about before. It feels like at least to me, it feels like the level is done, like we have completed it, and now we're going to the boss and feels like a separate thing. So if that's the case, then I don't know why it's like being made harder for me to access the summon for the boss. Like you figured that they would put that in a much more obvious place, but maybe I'm being too obtuse. I might be missing something. Have to go back and talk to her again or something? I'll give it another like 5 minutes and try to go find her. I think it was through here. It was like, yeah, there was Gavlan, and then there was that metal hook, or the chain that I pulled in order to unlock the area. Okay, so Gavlan's moved on. Right, and so I think she was like just in one of these buildings around here. That arrow stagger thing is actually crazy though. It's like really excessive. Yep. It's weird. This level with just like the density of enemies and everything, it almost feels like something more out of Sekiro in a weird way, because there's enemies that are like more, I guess, like nimble, like faster moving. They have more kind of fast sweeping attacks and stuff like that, and they just sort of keep coming from a variety of different angles. Kind of reminds me of the Ashina estate a little bit. But despite, you know, my character being much slower paced than Wolf, I'm still sort of able to handle it. So it's not like a bad thing. It's just kind of, yeah, it's weird. Like the game can feel really, really slow at times, and then all of a sudden feel really fast as well. Is she over here? Okay, she's gone. Yeah, good job. Good job. All right then. Well, not sure what I missed. Oh, I'm dense. That was probably it, huh? Well, honestly, you know, that's kind of funny. I don't hate that that happened or anything. That's kind of funny. I'm trying to think if, like, should the game have reminded me about that, you know what I mean? Should I have had some kind of signifier that, like, hey, remember you're hollow, you can't summon anymore. It would have been, it might have been cool if, like, great. Yeah, it might have been cool if you could see the summon sign and it would be like partially grayed out or something, and if you tried to summon from it, it would just say, like, you know, hollows cannot use this or something like that. That's probably too obvious for a From Software sort of thing. So I don't know if that would actually be a good idea. That's just me sort of spitballing. But this is cool. I got my summon. I figured out the problem. I got my axe. It's pretty low. So I'm going to take out a backup weapon. I think this one does bleed, so that'll be a good backup. I should have enough to get through. Do I want to add any other items in my inventory? Give me an extra boost. Boost defense. I guess I'll throw the knives in there. That could be useful. And then I'll just eat the grass, and then we'll go try this out. It'll be fun. I'm actually gonna try keeping my distance at first. Oh, the homing arc of the projectile is pretty crazy. And I think I missed like a bunch of shots there. Do I actually have any? Yeah, I'll try to use some resin. Okay, I can be fine. I'm just a little bit worried about running out of durability for my weapon. It's such a cool boss. So well designed, both visually speaking and in terms of the mechanics, like of how it attacks. Both sides are kind of working in harmony with one another. Has these great individual attacks, great combo attacks, wide variety of moves. The lizard heads poking up I didn't even see in my first playthrough. I literally just thought their heads were, the ends of their heads were defined by the ends of their helmets. And when I realized that the lizard heads were up there, it's like a really cool discovery to make as well. Just in general, really interestingly designed boss fight. The mechanic of the water rising up too, like, again, my character is a little bit overpowered, and so we didn't get to see that happen, but that was really cool. I remember in the base game, I think this pyromancy flame, or no, wasn't it like, it wasn't a pyromancy flame, it was a it was like whatever the seed is that strengthens, like the fire seed, and it was off in the corner. It was hard to see. This thing is really cool too. Somebody pointed out, I think, that that art, was it Zuli the Witch or Bonfire VN, figured out that fresco or whatever, or the bas-relief, whatever the term for it is a piece of real art that they lifted. You can actually find that very specific, precise piece of art in the real world. But with that being wrapped up, I think this is a good place to probably stop the stream for the night. I like playing through No Man's Wharf has kind of given me, not that I need to debate this per se, but if I were to debate Dark Souls 2 being a good game or not, I feel like I have a lot more ammunition now to explain why Dark Souls 2 can, at least at times, even if it doesn't always, can have excellent level design. I think No Man's Wharf has always been one of those levels that I kind of disregarded a little bit as being a stepping stone to the Bastille, and so I never really regarded it as all that important or whatever. But going through it just now, realizing just how many cool things they're doing, how many new mechanics they're introducing, how many, things they're experimenting with, I really think it's an incredibly well-designed level, especially for its time. Obviously, going through to something like Stormvale Castle, there's not as much maybe going on here as that, but oh shit, I forgot. There's a oh wait, no. But yeah, what the hell? I think I have to lower this and then step on top. Okay. But yeah. It's obviously maybe not as elaborate as something like that, but even if you think of like Central Yarnum, right? Like a very, very well designed level, very cool area. There aren't, or even like Liurnia, or not Liurnia, Rhea Lucaria, Halig Tree, some of the great levels from the Soul series, modern and previous. You won't find the introduction of too many like level gimmicks like that per level, like oil barrels that can create oil patches that both you and enemies can use, stuff like that, and also like that big torch that you can unlock that totally changes enemy behavior. Like you can kind of herd enemies around. One second, gotta focus on, forget which side it's on. Oh, is it just gonna line me up? Okay, there we go. Cool. Nice. They do a lot of things really well. I think they're really working overtime with that level. And it's such a relatively nondescript, like visually kind of sort of blandish level. They're still doing a lot on the design side that's pretty impressive. The healing mechanics, the legend of the infinite life gem healing thing that supposedly ruins the game and trivializes healing. I haven't been experiencing that at all. The hollowing, I was hollowed and it did impact my play, but then I unhollowed. I could have unhollowed by going and playing with somebody else, or using any of the 20, like, fucking humanities or human effigies that I had. I felt like that was totally reasonable as well. There were a couple of moments of panic that I was able to then, like, when I died, I learned from those deaths and was able to then, like, exploit the environment in order to be able to, like, get a better leverage on the enemies. I guess the last thing I'll say is that the game kind of likes doing this thing where it puts you in a dark place for a long time and then gives you like a big vista in order as you break out to kind of impress you, and this is pretty cool. It does this pretty consistently and does it pretty well. I feel like I missed out on seeing it before, but you can see there's actually several places in several levels from which you can see other locations. So I think that falls off later on, but the interconnectivity of the world might not be the same as it was in Dark Souls 1, but the believability of the spaces, I think, is, at least until you get to like the Iron Keep thing, coming out of the elevator into it, really does feel like they put a lot of attention to detail and making sure that you can see the areas that you were just in when you go to a new space, if that makes sense. Also, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but the past 3 times that I've spawned at the bonfire, I've been facing Drangleic Castle. I think that's a really cool detail. Like, they chose, like, they could have chosen to put you like facing the monument, or facing across the sea or anything like that. But no, every time you come back to, or even facing the town, to kind of invite you to go back and check on people or whatever. But no, every single time you come back to Majula, the first thing you see is a quote-unquote gateway leading to Drangleic Castle. There's your big looming, tower and goal right in the distance, right staring at you, like a reminder every time you come back, like, this is what you're doing, this is what you're here for. And with that being said, yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you to everybody who stopped by. And thank you for folks who have both been patient with me kind of figuring out my ideas in real time, and also just supported the transitions back and forth between like Naruto, Dragon Ball, and Dark Souls, and Elden Ring. I definitely want to continue with this playthrough for a little bit at least. Starting to crystallize my ideas a bit more. I might wind up playing a little on my own and then kind of coming back and showing off some stuff in a more focused way. I definitely do want to continue with the Elden Ring playthrough at some point too. And then, of course, on Sunday, we'll be having the continuation of the Naruto streams. I'll be posting a poll asking for people's opinions on what topic you'd like to cover next. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I hope everybody's having a great day, night, week, weekend, whenever you see this.